Ba weep Granagh weep Nini Bong. Welcome back, Autobuddies and Decepticons, to Transformers AutoBook Club, a weekly video and podcast series where we read, discuss, and deep dive into one issue or story per week of Marvel's Transformers comics. This week, I have a very interesting guest, somebody who is a polymath and somebody who's much smarter than I am. And as you'll hear when our conversation starts going, at first I felt a bit intimidated to have somebody so intelligent come on the show when I'm this goofy. But actually, he was very sweet, very kind, and very easy to talk to. And we went on at length about all kinds of different things. It was great. It was so much fun to record. But unfortunately, Michael did have a time limit. He had to go and do some personal things. So that means this edit is going to be particularly weird, I think. So that we could use our time to talk about some of the things he wanted to cover, we jumped around. And also, we kind of went off topic a lot, but it's all really good, interesting stuff. So I wanted to keep it in here, but I think the edit for this episode is going to be probably the loosest that it's been. Bear with us, because I think it's all good stuff. I think he's a really interesting person, and I think both of us were of a wavelength about certain issues, I think. So, yeah, there's a lot of kind of sidetracking and then some skipping around towards the end where I'm going to have to read my notes by myself and then edit in what Michael said about certain pages or certain things that happened in the comic. Yeah, bear with me. I think it's going to be a very interesting one, but also a tricky one to put together. Here at the beginning of the show, I like to put any Transformers news that's come up throughout the week. And really, I can't think of anything this week besides the fact that the pre-orders for the Transformers the Movie hardback comic collection have gone up on a comic store that I can use here in Japan. And I pre-ordered the heck out of that thing. So yeah, I'll definitely get my hands on that. Only other stuff before we get into the episode is personal stuff. I feel a bit better. My cough is almost gone and my voice is back to almost normal. So finally over my bronchitis. And also, I had an idea. In the last episode, I said, oh yeah, there's a Transformers manga, and I'd love to cover that sometime. I don't know when I'll find the time. And I also said that I started a Patreon, and that so far there are no bonuses for Patreon members. I think, though I do say often how much time this takes to make, that there is enough time every month to make a bonus episode on a 12 or so page manga chapter. I think I can manage that, so maybe that'll be something that comes in the future. And just for those of you who don't listen until the end of every episode, yeah, I do have a Patreon now. The minimum is $3 a month, but you can choose however much you want to help out the show. I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to be annoying, and I don't want to plug it every episode, but yeah, there's a Patreon there for those of you who do want to support me, and basically I'll use any money that I get from Patreon to support the show, to buy me time during the week, to write notes, and to record, and to edit, do all the things that I need to do to make this ready every week. If you do support the show on Patreon, you become an Auto Bestie or a Decepticon Padre, and you'll get a shout out every episode to say thank you. So this is this week's thank you to Mel and Corey, who both supported the show. Thank you guys so much. I'm very honored and flattered to have your support. Since there's not much Transformers stuff, I'm going to add in here a personal thing. Nobody asked, but it's almost the end of the school year here in Japan, which means in a few weeks, many of the kids in my class are going to leave. New ones will start to come in throughout the year. But I'm kind of realizing, yeah, it's my last chance to see some of them, and it's a really rare thing to know when the last time you'll see somebody is. That's a heavy feeling. Some of them will come back in other classes, or maybe after school classes, but there are some maybe I'll never see again. And I'm trying to keep that in mind and give everybody even more hugs than I usually do every day. I think sometimes I come off a bit soapboxy, and that's partially because of my age, and partially because I had a really dark time in my life for 10 or so years where I was very depressed. And I got over that, luckily. I was very lucky to be able to do that. And it's made me appreciate life and things about life in ways that I just couldn't before. And I had a friend who lost a friend randomly. He went to go get milk from the shop and just never came back. And I think it's one of those things that you don't think about if it doesn't happen to you, but it happens every day. It's really rare, like I said, to know the last time that you'll see somebody. So tell somebody you love them. Give somebody a hug. I guess that's all. Alright, I think that was too much. Anyway, let's jump into my discussion about issue number 9, Disintegrated Circuits, with poet and scholar and all-around nice guy, Michael VonCalbergh. One more note, which I had to add in later. I just got around to starting to edit everything together, and I found out that on the Discord call, for some reason, Discord just on its own decided to change my microphone settings so that the microphone from my earphones was being used instead of my big fancy podcasting microphone. So for half the episode, my audio is going to sound terrible. And then when it's me on my own, that's when I started to use Audacity, which had the right microphone settings. So sorry about that. there's not really anything I can do. So once again, just bear with me. I think it's still a good episode, but the audio quality for myself for at least half of it is going to be terrible. Sorry about that.
We had a chat before we started recording, but let's cover it one more time. So you have various strings to your bow, but one of the ones that's more relevant to this show is you teach in a university using comics. So what exactly do you do?
Yeah. First, thank you for having me on this too. This is really exciting. So yeah, my name is Michael VonCalbergh. I teach at U of I in Champaign-Urbana, in the United States in Illinois. And mainly I teach a lot of different things, like you said, but relevant to this discussion, I teach intro to comics, and I do use comics in my teaching across like all the different things that I do. Specifically, one of the things we talked about before we started recording is that this semester I'm teaching an advanced rhetoric course in which we're using comics as a way to enter into a conversation around how we decide to make specific choices when creating something new. And so we're using comics where my students they've analyzed the comic, they're going to draw a comic, and then they're going to work with somebody in the class to create a comic based on research that they do outside of class. So yeah, so that's what I do. I hope that qualifies me to talk about comics.
Oh, dang. Yeah, no, thank you for making the time to come and do this. I felt a little bit maybe intimidated only because your job is so intellectual and I'm so goofy. I thought like, oh, but we already had a little bit of a chat before we started recording, and it's really easy. And I think we're both really interested in comics, and we both really love them. So I think this is
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, good. Yeah, I was gonna say I really appreciate that you think I'm very serious, because I think you're one of the few people who do. So this is gonna be great. This is gonna be good.
Okay. Usually, a lot of the people I've had on before are big fans of Transformers,
Mm,
and they know a lot more about it than I do because I'm actually kind of a newer-ish fan. But
yeah.
everybody before has read these comics before. But you said that you decided to read only this one.
Yeah. So actually that's really interesting because I've been following you on Blue Sky for a little bit and kind of seen a little bit of the conversations you've had.
Oh,
And it did seem like a lot of the people that you've like interviewed or talked with were like Transformers fans to begin with.
yeah,
And when you reached out and was like, "Oh, would anybody, like to be on the podcast?" I was like, "Absolutely." And I think even in my message I was like, "But I haven't read these." And you're like, "That's fine." I'm like, "Great." Because I'm
yeah.
only going to read this one issue. I'm not going to read anything before it. I'm just going to jump in to number 9. The lady's name is Circuit Breaker, and I'm just going to see how it is. Um, Now, I'm not unfamiliar with Transformers. Like I've seen most of the movies.
Okay.
I've watched some of the TV show, like the original TV show.
Mhm.
And I was obsessed, maybe still am obsessed with Beast Wars, the Canadian TV show. Do you know what I'm talking
Okay.
about?
Yeah, that's funny
Yeah.
because I just started watching that like last week, so I've seen 2 episodes of that.
So I'm a big fan. When you finish it, message me on Blue Sky. I have thoughts about the end. But
Okay.
um I'm a big fan of that animated show because I kind of grew up with it. That was when I came home from school. That would happen to be one of the shows that was often on. And so I kind of grew up with that. So when I saw you guys doing this, Beast Wars has a warm place in my heart. And so I was
Mhm.
like, Transformers kind of has this like silly place in my heart where like I just think of Starscream's scream from
Yeah.
the original series all the time. I'm like, yep, that's amazing, right? Uh, and so yeah, so I was excited to kind of approach this as okay, I don't want like any other context other than walking right in to this one issue, and I thought that would be a fun way to like have the conversation
Yeah, I
around
think
it.
so too.
Yeah.
You're gonna be looking at this in a way I can't because I've read what led up to this. So it's gonna be I think we're gonna have completely different thoughts, or there's gonna be things you're gonna be like, "What is going on?" And there are some things that are like that even if you have read them. So
Oh, fair. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
it's gonna be interesting to see where that crosses over, I think.
I'm like familiar enough that I wasn't walking in going, "What? Robots that turn into cars? Oh my
Okay.
gosh." Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're a big Beast Wars fan, Optimus and Megatron are completely different in this. That's what surprised me the most when I started watching
Yes.
Beast Wars. They're calling this guy. They're all new characters, I think, in the first two episodes anyway.
All
Besides Optimus and
yeah.
Megatron, but they're completely different. Optimus is a big gorilla, and
Yep.
Megatron's a T-Rex.
Yep. Yeah. It's silly as heck.
It's
It
really
is
silly
just absolutely
and
amazing.
confusing to me too
Yeah.
because they wanted to get hold of some Enerdron that was on a planet, but it was too much, so they had to turn into beast modes, which for some reason protect them from the Enerdron. But I was like, "Well, you're still a robot, though. What? What? How does that work? I don't know. Shielding. It has shielding,
I
I guess."
Yes, and I think that Transformers really is like anything I've ever watched with Transformers or any media of Transformers I've ever enjoyed, has always been like, we're gonna explain this logically, but really, if you look at it for more than 1 second, the logic does not hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the entire franchise is mostly meant to be that way. Like, it's not meant to
yeah.
be examined seriously, which is why sometimes doing this podcast is interesting because I'm looking at it. Sometimes I look at it really like too much, like drill into details that were not meant to be examined the way that I'm examining them. But I wonder who they wrote these for sometimes because a lot of the issues are so wordy
Yes.
that I couldn't imagine like being 8 years old and reading the whole thing. But then Transformers were so popular at the time that maybe I would have just because it was Transformers. I don't know.
So that's actually a really interesting thing that I could probably give a little bit of context
Oh,
on.
awesome! Great.
So this comic, hold on, let me look at this real quick. This came out okay in 1985, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my issue that I have is a little bit like smudgy, right? Because it's a little
Oh,
bit
that's
older.
another thing too. Yeah, you decided to read only this one, and then you went and bought it, didn't you? You found it in a comic store or
Yes.
something.
Yeah, yeah. I went and bought it. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So
Thank
like
you for doing
yeah.
that.
No, no problem. I actually one of the things that I'm excited to talk about are all the amazing ads.
Oh, we haven't had that.
Yes, the old ads are amazing. I have thoughts, just let me know when you want them. But,
Oh yeah, when they come up, because
for the
I don't have a version with the ads in. So yeah, let me know
oh,
whichever time there's an ads page.
oh,
That's fun.
excellent, I'm excited. But one of the things with the lots of words that's really fascinating, right, is that so 1985 is just before kind of what's called, like, the British invasion of American comics,
Yeah.
where a lot of British creators come over and start, like, really switching some things up and changing, like, how comics are they get a little darker, they get a little bit different,
Hmm.
and at this time, and in the '70s even, um, a lot of, like, the comics that were coming out were wordy because that was, like, what some of the comics did. They just, like, were based in, like, writing with art, right? And in the late '80s to the '90s to the 2000s, you see a lot of, like, floppies, like, individual issues really take on what independent comics were already doing in the mid '80s, which was really talking about comics as, like, a merger or, like, a conversation between words and image. Like, the most classic example is, like, old X-Men comics, like, the Claremont runs of X-Men or Uncanny X-Men are so wordy.
I've heard of him because he's like so prolific, but I've never read any of his stuff so far.
Yeah, and so when you read kind of early stuff so one of the things that I love, the New Mutants, I think it's New Mutants, that sounds right, yeah, from that time, and Chris Claremont's writing it, and it's such a culture shock to read it compared to comics that are coming out right now
Mhm.
because the amount of language on a page similar to this issue is just massive
Right.
because they don't believe that their readers or they don't know yet that their readers can kind of make some leaps with them and understand what's going on.
Oh
They're trying
no.
to make sure yeah, they're trying to make sure that you understand what's going on inside the characters' heads, that you like know where you are, that you can kind of pay attention to it. And it's also a big benefit, which actually I thought this comic did, um, to readers who are just picking up this comic suddenly or they just started here, right?
Yeah.
Is that they can like explain things narratively so you're not too lost. And I actually thought that was a big benefit of this issue is that I was like, there are some things I don't understand, but a lot of it was like explained, right? Like they kind of explain who these characters are briefly, right? Like what happened, why is Circuit Breaker injured? Oh, here's a little note, right? Or in the dialogue, they explain, oh, weeks ago you got injured in this thing or a few days ago, and now you're fully paralyzed. I mean, like it's so much, but it allows for people to kind of pop in. So this is actually like something that in this historical moment is something comics did quite a lot for all those reasons. And I'm sure there's others that I'm not familiar with, but yeah.
Yeah, it does seem that way for this comic and on others from that time that I've read too, where they have to tell you every issue kind of who they are and what the circumstances are in case it's your first time. And I don't know
Yes.
when that
Yeah.
stopped. I don't know when it became the thing to be like, if you're reading number 32, you've probably read the rest.
I think that's the, I mean, every comic's different, but I think the majority of them probably stopped that. I would imagine in the like mid to late 90s when, you get like the comic bubble kind of bursts or the speculator
Right, yeah,
bubble
yeah.
burst in the US. And really the people that you have left reading
They
comics
were the ones who
are
were
people
reading
who,
the comics.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's so interesting. And there's different ways to go about it too. I think this one's not so bad at doing it in a context where it sounds like a little bit natural, but
Yeah.
sometimes the writers are so ham-fisted and they're just trying to really cram all the information in, so it comes off so unnaturally in some comics.
Yes, 100%, especially older comics, but it's one of the or yeah, it's one of the joys I think in reading older comics is that like you kind of giggle and go, "All right, like I see what you're doing." It's just an interesting thing about like how comics have grown and how they've grown into kind of trusting that their reader will be able to figure it out. Even manga these days that is translated into English, it used to be that they would reverse mirror them, right? So
Yeah,
like yeah, so, like, I have, like, some early like, manga that was published in, like, the 1980s, and it reads left to right, up to down, instead of right to left, but, like, contemporary manga just automatically trusts that the reader are gonna figure it out. I mean, there's
yeah,
always a note at the back, but, like, yeah, I think that's really cool,
yeah.
to
Some of
kind
the
of
first
trust.
manga I read was
Yeah.
like that too, and then when it seemed to get super popular in the early
Yes.
2000s, and then they'd be like, we didn't flip it because then if you have somebody with a T-shirt, say in the artwork, it's going to reverse what their T-shirt says, and you're going to notice that we flipped the image, so we're just not going to do that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
and it's not so hard to read it once you read that explanation that they put in every single book. Like this is the back,
Yes.
turn it over, read it this way. It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty simple. And if like manga is,
Yes.
I used to be like the biggest manga fan. I have like 500 or so manga like in storage in England because I was an addict for a long time. And like
Yeah.
manga really flows and draws you through. I think that's one of the things I think that it does, maybe even better than Western comics, is you just get into
Yes.
it and you know how to read it, and it's laid out in a way where you can read it quickly because it really draws your eye to the right place, and it's really really well done a lot of the time.
I agree. I agree. I think like one of the things that I love to do when I teach manga in an intro to comics course, because I can't like, I've never taught like a manga exclusive course. So
Mhm.
we usually like pick up one manga, right? We talk about it. Is I love comparing it to American comics, which like are so busy in the backgrounds,
Yes,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, so much detail in the background, and I'm like and the manga really, like, has a lot of panels that are just, like, kind of like, they give you 1 panel or 1 page of detail, we're in a park, and then a whole lot of panels without stuff or very little in the background, and I just think like, "Oh, yeah, this makes you read it so much faster."
yeah. I think so too.
Because yeah. And so it is really interesting, and manga really is good at, like, going, "Hey, we trust you to know that they're still in this park, and that we will tell you if they leave this place," right, or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. That's
All right,
awesome. 500
yeah, something like
manga
that.
in a storage unit. Wow, that's
I
wild.
think
I
something like
love it.
that. Yeah, and there's a lot of them I probably don't need anymore, but there are some that definitely I'm gonna get out and keep forever.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get into disintegrated circuits?
Oh my gosh, yes, we definitely should.
All right. for me, coming to this cover, like I said before, I've read everything that came before this, so it's pretty obvious to me what's going on here.
Yeah.
You said that you have lots of thoughts about this issue. How about the cover? When you looked at this, do you have any idea what was going on?
So no, I mean, like, I know who Starscream is, right? Like, that was good. I had no idea who Circuit Breaker was, right? Or who that character was. And so no, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I like I get the idea that like she's some sort of antagonist that's gonna like, go against, all the Transformers, like the good guys, the bad guys from the cover. And I have a lot of thoughts about her costume, let's say, right?
Yes, me
Her
too.
mechanical, yeah. And the cover, I was like, oh, okay, like whatever. This is like a bodysuit. Um, like there's a bodysuit that has like a weird design on it, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. Really my thoughts about the the outfit come from inside the pages.
Huh.
The cover kind of set me up like, oh, this is just a comic booky thing.
Mhm.
But when she gets introduced in the pages, I was like, oh my God. Oh, I'm like, that's what, oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay.
this issue is one that in the past, even before we got to it, a couple of people have mentioned to me this is a standout issue in their like memories. And I guess a lot of people have read this
Oh,
when they
okay.
were younger. And
Yes.
I haven't had a single person who isn't like, I don't know even how to put this in the correct way these days. Everybody I've had on the show before is definitely male. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
they were
Yes.
boys at the time or young men when they read this. And
Yeah. Yes.
the entire comic besides this so far has been these chunky giant robots and like one young man and his dad. So this is, I don't know, we've had Jessie, which is Buster's girlfriend, but she hasn't been in it for a while. And she's
Okay.
really minor character pretty much. So not really any girls or female characters or women at all. And then we get this character
Oh my
who shows up and is like such a Marvel character.
oh my God. Right. I mean, this is that context actually really helps too because it makes me feel more eye rolly about the character even more than I did
Oh
already.
yeah.
Where I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, the outfit's wild. This is a wild outfit to put a human being in, right?
Yes, I
Like,
agree with
oh
you.
my gosh.
Right, I think we're looking at it in a similar way where I feel like this is a really fine line that you have to walk, and I think I
Yeah.
might be a little bit oversensitive about this for lots of reasons. Like we were just talking about manga and stuff. I read a lot of manga when I was younger, and a lot of the female characters in
Yeah.
that are also like extremely overly sexualized, and I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
that. But I can also see
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it's I don't want to say it's harmless, but sometimes is it okay? It really depends on context and how gratuitous it is. It's really hard to look at it critically, at least for me, to be like, am I thinking
No,
too much
no, I
about it?
think
Am I being too sensitive? Am I not being sensitive enough?
no. Oh, that's I mean, I think your response is perfectly fine, right? I think like I think with this like what you're going for is like is it treating the character as a sexual object to be like oogled over,
Yeah,
right? By
yeah.
boys, which I think you and I both are like yes, yes, that's what this is, right?
Well,
Um
kind
but
of.
the
We'll get back to
character
it.
isn't terrible,
No,
like the character has a lot of agency. She isn't just like, she has, like, desires, she has, like, thoughts, she is a really strong character, like, in the story itself, but I think you're like, the outfit is just, like, wild. Why isn't she wearing clothes on top of this? Like, that's my
that's a
question.
really good point. There's absolutely no reason for her not to wear clothes on the
No.
top of it.
I I know, because, like, because when she explains what the suit is later on in the comic, I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, because she was paralyzed,
Yeah.
right? And so, then she shows up later on in the off
She
in the
walks to
CEO's
the office
office.
wearing this.
Yes, and that's the moment where, like, so when I saw the cover, I was like, "Oh, she must have, like, a bodysuit on, and this is the design of the bodysuit." But no,
No,
she's actually, like, nude except for this design that this, like, computer design that's essentially drawn on her. And yeah, I think your sensitivity to it is 100% accurate. I
Good.
think you're in the right realm there, which is like, yeah, like you don't need this. She could be a badass
No.
character while also wearing a shirt. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
like
And like you said, you could think that it was a bodysuit, but they make sure you know that it isn't. We'll get to that later, but she can
yeah,
just take it off. There are parts of it that just come off, so you know for sure that's her skin that's poking through. But
yes, yes.
they're also pretty careful about showing her from only the front. I think there's only one panel where you see her from the back, and even when you do, it's like
Oh, I think
she's
you're
got
right.
like big granny pants on at the back, like her butt is covered up. So they walked this line so carefully of like, she's a little bit sexy, she's teasing you a little bit, but all the major areas that need to be covered are fully covered. So that's why I couldn't
Yeah,
really figure out how I felt about it. And then also her age,
yeah.
like she seemed a lot younger when she was first introduced. Then she got paralyzed.
Oh, okay.
She's old enough that she works a job, and then um, yeah, when she was first introduced, there was like, oh yeah, she's this awesome scientist who designed all these things, and she looks quite young. But then you figure like, well, she's old enough to be the head researcher and the head scientist at this company, so she must be
Yeah.
at least fully grown.
Yeah, she must be in her 30s or something, right? Like
Yeah,
that's what I kind of assumed from what I got in this comic. Yeah. I think you're right. There's a big difference between the page where she introduces her costume and the end of the comic where she is like battling. And you're right, when she's like battling and leaving, her costume seems much more to like cover
yeah,
everything, and they are walking that really really thin line. When we get to the splash page where she introduces
yeah.
her new
She does that
self
big
as
pose
Circuit
moment.
Breaker, we'll talk about it. But yeah,
So I feel like that's kind of her like big introduction and her like, here's me, I'm
mhm.
going to do this big confident pose. And that would be a really good moment in the comic had they not shown her on the cover. So it's a weird thing to be like, here's this character. You're like, yeah, no, she was on the cover. So this was definitely to get boys to buy it, right? Because here's a not really wearing
Yeah.
much clothes lady.
Yes, and I think what you said earlier, that's really where I was going, is that it seems like this cover is specifically created to be like, "Hey, it's issue 9. Let's get some more boys to pick up this
Yeah.
issue than maybe who were reading before." Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
they did build up this story over like about 4 or 5, maybe more stories. So they didn't just come out of nowhere with this. They had this
Oh,
plot going
okay,
on,
okay.
which I don't know if that makes it better or not really, but at least it's not like, here's this scantily clad woman for no reason. It's like, no, she's a character that they've established. We know what happened to her and why she's doing what she's doing over multiple issues, which
Yeah,
I feel like for a Marvel comic in the 80s, that's pretty rare. I say that pretty often about this, where they do a lot of things that
yeah.
comics at this time were not so good at doing, in my experience. They set things up and they
Mhm.
give them a long time. Things kind of cook and bubble away in the background and then come to the fore.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I got that impression.
Yeah, it's really surprising. So yeah, on the cover, they even so that you know what's going on, there are text boxes on the cover, which is kind of a rare thing too.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So at the top it says the lady's name is Circuit Breaker,
Yes.
and then under that it says she's out to destroy all robots, which actually is important because we weren't really sure
Yeah.
if she was going to be going after only the Decepticons or if she was going to just have a hate on for all Transformers, and it turns out she just hates all of them for some reason. She knows exactly which Transformer is responsible for her injuries, and she's seen him multiple times. But still, she hates all of them. And then at the bottom there it says that is if Starscream doesn't get her first. And then yeah, Starscream's behind her, and he's kind of like reaching towards her
Yeah.
to grab her, and she's in the foreground with like a big energy aura
Yes.
coming from one of her hands, and then she's pointing at something else with a really bendy finger.
Yes.
One of her fingers is really flexible,
Yeah.
and she's pointing at something. But yeah, before we get going on to the first page, an interesting thing about this character is that in the contract between Marvel and Hasbro, they said any characters that make their debut in this comic belong to Hasbro.
Mhm.
So any Transformers that maybe were created just for the comic at some point, if that happens, Hasbro owns them and can make toys of them and whatever.
Okay.
So to get around that for Circuit Breaker, they put her into Secret Wars. I think it was Secret Wars 2. So she shows up and for like a page, and they're like, "Yeah, this is Circuit Breaker. She doesn't like robots." So Marvel debuted her elsewhere, So Marvel got to keep Circuit Breaker as a character.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they really, really went out of their way to make sure they got her. And I just read a comic a few weeks ago that had Death's Head in it, who I know is a Transformers character, and he's still in Marvel Comics. So I wonder if they also did that with him somewhere.
Yeah, I read Death's Head. I actually didn't know that Death's Head was Transformers related. I read a series with him recently. Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting.
I know the name and I know what he looks like because he's been in comics now, but I still haven't seen him in these comics yet.
Really, really interesting. Yeah, that I
Yeah, it's a
didn't know
strange,
that.
strange thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was actually about to say, I was like, I wonder if they ever made a toy of Circuit Breaker, if this was like a thing that you could go to a KB Toys, if you remember what that is, and go pick this
Oh,
up.
I don't. We didn't have it in England,
Oh no. Okay.
but yeah, maybe they did.
Yeah. Oh
I
man.
don't know, but let's look that up. I'm so interested to see. Did they make a Circuit Breaker toy?
Yeah. Now I'm looking at I'm like looking at her
They,
continuity right now as well.
uh,
Oh my god.
they. Oh no, I was gonna say they exist, but this is a custom that somebody made.
Oh, it's a custom one. Okay, yes,
It's a
yes.
custom one. It's a custom Lego one.
Yeah.
The Lego one looks, but the hair is really accurate though.
Oh my gosh. There's a wiki for Circuit Breaker which has a lot of jokes about Circuit Breaker on it, which is very
Oh,
very intense. Um and like I just googled like Circuit Breaker character and the image that keeps popping
yeah.
up is the image from this comic where she gets introduced. That splash page. It seems to be
Going with her hand on her hip.
yes, a very famous splash page. I'm really excited. I'm honored actually that you let me talk about this
Oh
issue with
shucks.
you because I'm like, yes, this is great. This character's wild. Absolutely wild.
These comics are like that. They're so crazy, and I didn't know what to expect from them at all after like watching the show and the movies.
Yeah.
And I thought they'd be. I don't know what I thought they'd be because I love the new comic that's coming out now like so much,
Yeah.
and that's what made me want to read these and see where that came from.
Uh,
And they're all over the place. They're insane. They're so silly in some places, but they're so good and so good compared to other comics at the time in places too.
sure.
And I'm really glad about that. So this kind of podcast and video series came to being like half making fun of them and then half being like, no, this is really good.
Um,
I think the balance is really nice, and I'm lucky that it worked out that way.
yeah, yeah.
And it's really fun to analyze it because of that. Sometimes it just makes you laugh so much, and sometimes you're like, no, this is really good stuff. One of the issues has a character who is a Vietnam War vet, and I thought in the Marvel style they'd just be like, oh yeah, he was in Vietnam, and that would be all the information that we
Yeah.
got. But we got like maybe half an issue was used as like his backstory of his experience in the war, of being a prisoner of war, and like what he did to get out, and then how that changed his character after the war, and why he doesn't like being called the traitor by these other characters because he's been in a situation where he very much wasn't a traitor. Like,
Yeah.
I did not expect that at all. I was so impressed with that.
That is really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, but this also like reminds me of a lot of things in comics generally, right? Which is that like there are some comics that are infamously, just like cheesecakey or like they do things that are super like, oh my God, eye rolly. But like a lot of comics, like they're
Yeah,
trying to grapple with like issues of the time, right? I mean, it's like anything that's written during any time, right? Like, like they're
mm,
trying to balance like where the author or the writer and the artist are like whatever in the political spectrum or how they're thinking about identity or how they're thinking about gender, whatever it may be. And it's always really interesting because it's always complicated, right? It's never really cut and dry. Which I always find
yeah.
like I don't know, every once in a while, like on social media, there'll be like a bunch of people who are like, "Ugh, the new comics have politics in them." I'm like, "Have you ever read a comic?"
Oh, come on, you haven't read a
Yeah,
comic, have you? Yeah, it's so silly to me to say that.
yeah.
Like,
And it's like in this one,
We
yeah.
have Captain America, whose whole thing is like punch Nazis. Like
Yeah, but
you can't be like, "Oh, it's got politics." You mean it's got politics that you don't like, or it has topics that have become political that are not political that you don't like.
yes, exactly. And I think like I think even old comics that were like trying to be just like punch them up, right? Like still don't. There's this really old Batman comic that I'll sometimes teach, which it's Two-Face has been cured. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here, right? But like Two-Face,
No, it's all
yeah,
right.
Two-Face has been cured of like his like skin deformity, right? Where like half of his face is all acid burned and half of it's regular, right? And there's a
Yeah.
comic early on, I think it's in like maybe the 50s, where he gets cured and he in the beginning of the comic, so I'm ruining nothing for anybody. Also, this comic's like 70 years old, so like,
Yeah,
I
I was
feel
about
like
to say spoiler
yeah,
warning
spoiler.
for 1950s
Yeah, no
Batman.
spoilers, right? But he's walking around as a human, he doesn't have acid on his face. And immediately the comic is like he sees someone robbing a store and he has the moral choice of whether he's going to physically stop them or ignore it because like he doesn't want to he the doctor said he can't get injured because his deformity could come back, right? And so he has to make this
Oh,
moral
okay.
yeah, he has to make this moral choice of like, do I stop the bad guys or do I protect myself? And then he decides to stop the bad guys and gets deformed again. And then he goes, well, I guess since I'm deformed, I have to do crime now. And it's the most wild thing that these writers are like, yeah, I mean, if you have a physical deformity, of course you're going to do crime. And you're like, "What?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
what?
and it's like but that's like a political like, it's silly, it's absurd, right? But it's still like a political message or a stance that they're
Yeah.
taking in this moment. So, I just think it's really funny because it's like, you're not reading any of these comics closely, are you? Are you just looking at pictures? Are you reading the word? Are you
Yeah.
reading the images? Yeah.
You like it because the characters punch each other sometimes.
Yes.
You're not reading the story.
Yes, and maybe you're not even
Oh
reading
man.
reading that part. Maybe you're like, "Oh, Batman, punched the Riddler, excellent. Superman punched, Doomsday, excellent. Okay, I'm done. I read it." And you're like, "Okay, did you nothing else?" They're like, "Nothing else. That's all I looked at."
No, and yeah, I think for the most recent comics I've read, mm, it doesn't come around so often that there's a really clear political message,
Yeah,
but there are some writers who are so brave and are just like, this is a very political message, and
yeah,
I love it when a comic says fuck Nazis. And they've done it several times recently.
yeah.
I think like last week, the Juggernaut beat up some Nazis and was like, take this, you Nazi scum. And I was like, yeah, they're just, and they're not being subtle at all.
Yeah.
And I like the balls.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, me too. It was great. And they're doing really cool stuff with X-Men now because there's a group within X-Men who they're white supremacists, but they also want white mutants because that's like the Ubermensch. That's like the perfect form of a human is like they're white and they're I guess Christian and they have extra powers. They're like perfect. And the X-Men are like, no, 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 we're not having that. It
Oh.
was great.
Oh, that's really interesting. Dang.
Isn't it so brave? I was so surprised that they did that, but it fits the time
Yeah.
perfectly. So I hope they continue that, and it wasn't just a one-off comment because
Mhm.
that felt like a really bold thing to do.
I think that it's really, I know it's a balance because, Marvel's owned by Disney and Warner Brothers owns DC. And I know there's always like, pressure from the top, I'm sure, from like their corporate overlords, right? What they can and can't do.
Yeah,
But like, it's always cool when like a comic will come out and do something.
yeah. Let's go to the first page. So what usually I do like a recap of where the story is at, just to help people remember who are watching it. But I don't want to do that this time because then I would be telling it in a different way where you came to that without knowing the
Yeah.
story. So I want to go without this time. And then I think from context, you get everything anyway. There's nothing too difficult to remember, I don't think. So
Okay.
we'll be fine.
Nice.
The first page has the credits, which is not always the case, but this time we got the credits here down at the bottom. At the top is the title that says Disintegrated Circuits. And for some reason, the dis is hyphenated from integrated circuits, and it's been written that way in other places too. I don't know why they've done it that way. It was spelled the same way at the end of the last story we had in the UK comics.
Oh,
So it's intentional. I don't know what the intention is, but this integrated circuit.
okay. I was gonna say my favorite part of this page is that the inker is named M Hands.
Oh yeah, the M hands is just a joke name that they put in, and it means many hands. So it means they needed to rush the inks,
Oh, there you go.
and they got lots of people to do them.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got M hands on the inks. Bob Rudiansky was the writer. Mike, I can't see that properly. Mike, is that Manley? Mike Manley is the penciler.
Yeah, I think so.
Rice Parker was the letterer.
You might have just heard me say that I couldn't see very well, and that is evidenced by the fact that that name is Rick Parker, not Rice Parker. Just wanted to pop in and clear that up.
Nell Yontov was the colorist. I think I read that Nell Yontov colors all of these.
Oh, okay.
Because every time I read an issue, I'm like, oh, it's Nell Yontov again. They haven't broken their streak, and I think they don't and won't break their streak. So Nell Yontov's going to be the colorist for the entire thing,
Right.
which is great, actually. I really like their work. And then Jim Owsley is the crew chief. They're making like a race car,
Yeah.
racetrack analogy. And then Jim Shooter is the pit boss, or the editor-in-chief at Marvel at the time still. So it's 10 a.m. at the Motor Speedway, and guess who owns this place? It's GB Blackrock, who owns a lot of things. He's got his fingers in a lot of pies.
Okay.
His name pops up often.
Yeah, he seems like the main like antagonist to all the Transformers. You know, the main corporate guy that they're all interacting with.
But reading this made me laugh. It just feels like he owns everything. The oil rig and the hospital that Josie was in was also his.
Yes.
And an aerospace engineering plant. And now he also owns this speedway.
Excellent. You know, a man of many financial talents, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems so. He's doing very well for himself.
He is.
So there's a man in a green suit, and he's asking the man in the red jumpsuit, who he calls Chuck, to jump in front of a car if he has to get GB's attention, because GB hasn't appeared to notice them waiting to talk to him on the side of the track. And there are 3 military men with him, and they're too busy to wait much longer, so they really want to hurry up and talk to GB.
Yes.
And the other man replies, calling the guy in the green suit Ames, and he tells him he can't help it if Blackrock would rather drive his race car around the track than speak to his chief of staff, by which I think he means Ames.
Yes.
And he's holding some kind of sign there, I think, to try and flag GB down.
Yeah.
And there are 4 pretty cool looking race cars going by them in the artwork on the track.
Yep. I imagine that every Transformers comic has cool cars drawn in it, right? Just like
Yeah.
like all the movies had really lucrative deals with all the car manufacturers that the
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And that's interesting that none of these cars, at least I couldn't tell you what cars these are, but there is a Goodyear sign on the racetrack. I wonder if they just drew that to be realistic, or if they were actually given some money for that. I don't know.
I don't know either.
So GB, who's driving the red car, if you were wondering, screeches to a halt and asks Ames what he wants this time. And GB says that his schedule allows for 2 hours of practice laps on the race course, and that he has 5 minutes left to go. So he asks Ames, quote, "Did you screw up again?" And Ames informs GB of 3 men who have come to talk to him. But that doesn't really stop GB from being annoyed, because he asks Ames if he schedules a meeting for just anyone who wants one. And he berates Ames, and he says that he's a busy man and doesn't have time for everybody who wants to see him. But he catches sight of one of the men and quickly changes his tone to say, "Oh, except somebody as important as General Capshaw." And he politely greets the general. So he sees this like army general and then just completely changes his attitude. I don't know why he would feel the need to change the way he's talking when he speaks to this guy, but whoever he is, and for whatever reason, it seems like he needs to stay on this person's good side.
Yeah, I mean, it's big government, man. You know, the government's there. You know, he's got all these government contracts. He's got to make sure they like him. You know.
You're probably right. He probably owns something that's being given to the military.
Yeah.
And also, I forget the military is treated in a different way, I guess, in America than it is elsewhere. Like, it's really reverent. Yeah, like people are really reverent towards the military, which is not an experience I've had in England.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
But Capshaw is all business too. He says, "Let's cut the bull, BlackRock," which actually that really surprised me.
Yeah.
It's not a swear word, but it's again walking that really thin line
Yeah.
Marvel seems to be doing in this issue. I wouldn't have expected Marvel to let that one slide, but it's in here.
Hmm.
And Capshaw continues that the military have read some disturbing news concerning BlackRock and his plans to unveil a new weapon designed to destroy giant robots, just like the robots that they've been seeing around Oregon lately. But the military hasn't yet ascertained who is controlling or sending these robots, and until they do, they want to keep them out of the public eye as much as possible. Which, they're giant robots. Spider-Man has already got pictures of them. Oh, you didn't know that? Maybe in issue 3, Spider-Man showed up and took pictures of
That's amazing.
Transformers. Yeah, it was very weird. Spider-Man just hung out a bit.
Excellent.
Didn't do too much, but he was there.
Yeah.
And they've also been on the news. So I feel like it's too late to be trying to keep these things secret, but
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to do.
I also was like, they're giant robots, and they took over like oil rigs. I assume people know about this already. Like, what are you trying to keep hush hush?
Yeah, I don't know, but that's what he says. So to that end, they want to ask GB to change his plans to show off his weapon. And BlackRock argues back that the robots have taken a lot from him and are now even keeping several dozen of his workers hostage. So he pretty much has to make a move on these robots.
Yeah.
And Capshaw tells him, "That's nonsense. This is a national security issue. Where's GB's sense of patriotism?" And GB says that his empire was built on profits, not the Pledge of Allegiance, and that he has to show his investors that he's at least doing something about the problems. And Capshaw says that a foreign power could be the ones behind these robots, maybe even communists. Which, like, I guess that's an 80s thing, right? Where everybody was scared of nuclear bombs and communists.
Yep.
That's another thing that I think maybe it's a more American thing.
Yeah.
Like, to me, communism sounds like quite a nice idea. The only reason we can't do it is because human beings are human beings and somebody will always get greedy.
Yeah.
I don't know why in America, like, communism is seen as such a terrible thing.
Oh man, that's we could have a whole episode just about why Americans think communism's bad. But one of the big things is that America and Russia at the time were like really involved in like what the Cold War, right? Like I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I didn't know if that was the same language used in other spaces, but like in the US it was just like purely like Russia's communist and we hate Russia, so therefore we hate communism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so there was just a lot, and that's why he responds with, "You worry about the Ruskies, General, I'll worry about my stockholders," is because Russia and communism are just, like, so intimately associated in the American
I
psyche,
see.
yeah. And was this before the
Alright.
before the Berlin Wall came
Oh!
down?
Oh, we can check.
Yeah, I'm checking real oh,
When
yeah, it
did
is. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, 1989 is when the wall fell down. So, I mean, like, yeah, so we're still in, like,
wow.
the height of, America's, like, anger or, like, frustration with communism, yeah.
Wow! So like you were saying, like, that's a political message, even though it's, like, kind of a throwaway.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really comical that he's like, "Maybe it's communist," but at the time, that was pretty serious.
Yeah. But I think, like, even at that time, I think, like, anybody reading this would have been like, "Oh my god," right? Like, because, at that time, like, po American politics were like, "Oh, man, this balloon that floated by, maybe it was communist,"
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. America, It's just, it is what it is.
GB tells GB tells Capshaw to worry about the Russians, and that he'll worry about his stockholders, like he said. And with that, he kind of storms out of his own racetrack
Yeah.
in a different car as well. So I guess the one that we saw before, in other issues, it's this one with his driver. And he says he has an important appointment to keep. And in the last panel on the page, he takes us with him to Blackrock Chronic Care Institute.
Mhm.
I just found that funny. He got angry and then left his own racetrack.
Yeah. Also, a few panels before, this was one of my favorite moments of this CEO, which I feel like this CEO I could talk about forever just from this one issue.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my god, I have so many thoughts about him. But one of my favorite is this beginning where he's like, "I had 5 more minutes, buddy." And then, why not letting me, relax for 5 more minutes? I'm a busy CEO. And then he's sweating profusely in this image, and then he just puts on yeah,
Oh.
he puts on glasses, takes off his little suit
Mhm.
or his little like driving suit, puts on a tie, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he's clean. He's not sweaty anymore, and now he's leaving because he has an important appointment to keep, which I was like, "Dude, you
Yeah.
had 5 minutes. Are you bad at planning your time? Like, what is happening here?"
Oh, you just made me think you were going another direction because this is the 80s. He's an important CEO and he's sweating a lot. Like, I wonder what he was doing in that car
Oh,
driving around the track for 2 hours.
well, y
Maybe there were some other recreational things going on at the same
got it.
time.
No, I think, like, from what I understand, when you're driving at those really high speeds, it actually, like, really puts your body through it, right? So, like, I think it's supposed to be like he's "exercising," quote, unquote, right? But, like, a
Oh,
wealthy man's exercise, which is driving a really
driving a car.
expensive, fast car around the track that he owns. Oh, yeah, you know?
Yeah. And there's Ames, his assistant Ames, actually, he's taken his helmet and given him his glasses and then he's taken off his suit.
Yep.
So I think like Ames is doing all this for him. He's like a manservant kind of.
Yes, it's oh my god, so ridiculous.
Huh. Actually, we were talking about how Crown reflects some of these issues are,
Yeah.
and this page, I have it now because I edited it so that all the text is gone. But there are so many boxes and speech bubbles. Like there's a lot of text in this issue,
There is.
and the
There
next
is.
one too is rammed.
Yeah, it's really crammed, and I
Um,
think, like, the next page is all about, like, giving us background in case we're a first-time reader, right? Like,
yeah,
which was this was the part that I was like, "Oh, this is helpful that she's in the hospital bed because of what happened last issue or a few issues
mhm.
ago in Transformers number 6." Okay, like, I'm with you, and there's, like, a lot of information that's given here, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they really stuff it all in, and yeah, like you said, if you haven't read it before, you're going to be caught right up after this.
Yeah.
So GB's checking in on Josie, and he apologizes for not having been there sooner. He says that the army brass have nothing better to do than to order him around, but that he's GB Blackrock, not some quote buck private, which I had to look up because buck private is not something I've ever heard of before.
Me neither.
It's an informal name for an enlisted service member who's at the absolute lowest military rank.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. Blackrock has brought not one but two people with him just to bring in flowers for Josie in this panel. So he's got two guys with him, and all they're doing is bringing in flowers.
Excellent.
That's how much money he has. Just he has two people on staff just to carry flowers. Josie says that it makes perfect sense for GB to want revenge on the robots, and heavily drops a hint for him that she wants her old job back, saying, "When I come back to work for you full time as your computer systems designer," which I think it's the full time that made it stick out to me.
Yeah.
She's asking for exactly what she wants
Yes.
when she gets out of hospital. And she did get injured at work at like his oil rig, and it wasn't really his fault. But I just wonder how possible it would be for her to sue the pants off him
Yes. Yes.
because she got really badly injured,
Mhm.
but by a giant robot attack, which is he can't really be blamed for that, I suppose. But GB hesitates and he tries to palm her off, saying that the doctors aren't sure that she'll even ever recover,
Mm.
so they shouldn't really be rushing into discussing her future employment just now. And his mention of the accident triggers a memory of it for her,
Mhm.
which is, yeah, for the reader's benefit, really. So they're still making allowances for new readers who have just hopped on here.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we discussed earlier, that cover, I think, was intended to make that happen
Yeah.
by putting the character reveal on the front so that you could see all of her uh, qualities.
There you go. There you go.
So she recalls the terrible shock that she got aboard the oil rig during Shockwave's attack. The memory, it says, is almost as painful as the incident itself. So Josie decides to change the subject. And this is so silly, but it's great. And I appreciate that at least the attempt was made to make this make any kind of sense.
Yeah.
She says that she's been working in the hospital, and while she's been working, she's come up with a levitation system.
I
So
mean,
by making millions of computer controlled adjustments, to its movement every second, this strange green thing, whatever it is, it looks like it might be a camcorder or something.
Yeah.
It's able to fly. So she's been paralyzed. You can move one hand, and she's got that. You can see like this big red keyboard thing.
Yeah.
Which this is 80s, so there's no internet or anything. I don't know what on earth she's been doing. But from that, she was able to make this thing fly, which is so ridiculous.
I love it. It's so good. I mean, this is the hopeful kind of science fiction that like they're like, we could do anything if we tried. Where like we're now in 2026 and they're like, listen, we've come up with a program. It eats 10,000 acres of rainforest every second. It destroys 10% of the world's water every year. And it answers your questions wrong 70% of the time. It's great, right?
And nobody likes it.
Yeah, nobody likes it.
And all the big companies are pushing it.
Yeah, it's like, this is progress. But here, like it's tech in that hopeful way. Oh, if we just work really hard, we could have like little machines that make camcorders fly. How fucking cool.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah. And in a way, like there's part of this that at the time was ridiculous science fiction fantasy, which is her like being able to move her body even though she's paralyzed with the help of this technology. And in the 40 years or whatever since this comic was written, that's pretty much possible now. You can have what's that called? Prosthetic limbs that can be moved using the electrical impulses from the rest of the limb that's still left. Like, I thought that was pretty cool, actually. Like, this is technology we actually have now.
Yeah, that's
not the flying camcorder.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
So, yeah, absolutely ridiculous. That makes no sense. But I appreciate that they at least tried to be like, this is why it can fly, but don't think about it too much. But yeah, they could easily have said like, "Hey, look, I made this impossible thing," and then just let us deal with it. But at least Bob Budiansky made an attempt to make this impossible thing make as much sense as it possibly could. GB has a famous Oregon sedate reaction to seeing an object that is independently able to fly, and he says, "That's amazing, and you're as brilliant as ever, Josie." She says that she was only able to create it thanks to his support and the equipment that he's been providing her at the hospital. And she says she wants to repay him for that, which is why he has to let her help him with the giant robots. And she repeats, "You must." But again, GB tries to just brush her off, and he says he has to go, but they can discuss it next time he visits. And in his thoughts, he's hoping that she forgets about all that before then. But credit to him, at least he seems to be doing that out of concern for her. He thinks that he let the robots take too much from poor Josie, and he can't let that happen again. And yeah, he's been really trying to butter her up and giving her everything that she needs at the hospital, but I really think he does care about her. And at first I thought like, well, he knows she can really easily sue him, but none of that's ever been mentioned. So if that's really what he's thinking, he never says so. But I think he does just generally feel concerned for her.
That's fair. Yeah. I think that one of the things that I like or that I was excited about with this is that this is in this vein of comics where like the CEO or the leader of the industry or like the leader of the company isn't necessarily a bad guy. Actually, he's like a bad guy with like a good soul. He's like, he cares, right? And I think that this is such of the time, right? 1980s America, pro business, pro private stuff, pro benefiting shareholders, and like just a complete like ignorance of the fact that he's a CEO and owns all this crap and clearly is not concerned as he should be about giant robots in Oregon. But but he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Yeah, he owns all this money.
Yeah, I think so.
He's got all this money. How many people died because of the money he has? We're not talking about that, right? All the people he had to hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's nobody who's filthy rich and clean at the same time. That's why we call it filthy rich, right? Like,
yes, exactly. But I do think it's interesting because it is a character that you see in like some early comics where like you can tell like the world American comics we're living in, pre 80s, all the bad guys were like owned companies and were CEOs. And like Captain America had to
I was about to say, lots of 80s movies I can think of are like, we have to stop this evil capitalists from destroying the rec center, so
Yep.
we can have our band concert or whatever.
Yes, and if you think about like who are making movies in the 80s, it's people who are like teens in the 70s, right? And so then who are making movies in the 90s? It's people who are teens in the 80s, and they are been raised on this pro business, pro CEO, like actually CEOs are people too. Which, listen, I don't know about you. I've never met a CEO, right, of a company, like of like a big
No, I haven't.
company. I don't know if you have. So I don't know
No.
if they're human. I have no actual proof that Elon Musk
I was about
is
to
a human.
say the same thing. We're at the point now where it looks like they're not really, because we've got Musk and Bezos, who both don't function like regular human beings with
This
a
is true.
camera. Like,
But that was one of the big things that as I read this, I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like seeing this CEO character where they're like clearly has all the money in the world or owns everything, but trying to humanize him by like having him care for this random employee who got hurt, right? By a Decepticon, right? And so I was like, yeah, this reads of the time, right? But I liked that.
I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah,
Comparing this to now, yeah, completely different.
yeah.
Yeah, I really wonder what they do with this now. He'd be like he'd be like making AI to help the Decepticons or something,
Yeah,
using
right.
all his
I mean, like,
ridiculous
yeah,
AI power reserves to sell energy to Megatron or something.
yeah.
Oh no, that's horrible. I just wrote the most terrible fanfic. I hate
I
it.
know, I know. It's like when you think about like I don't know. It's always interesting. Like even now when I see movies that were made and there's like a business leader and like you're supposed to feel for them, I'm just like in this mindset where I'm like, I can't. I can't feel for somebody who
Yeah.
has billions of dollars. Like I just can't.
No, because you know what they had to do to get that much money, and it's always fuck
Exactly.
somebody over.
Exactly.
Well, fuck the whole planet over, and then the whole planet's like, yeah, it's fine. We still want to drive cars. So
Yeah.
what the fuck? Anyway,
Yeah. Oh man.
it's so hard to stay away from politics. Even reading ridiculous Transformers
I
comics.
know, I know. But yeah, so I like that. I also like that you're kind of going through each panel so that people who like don't who don't have it or haven't read it can like kind of see what the story's going through.
Oh, thanks. It's surprising to me that I have maybe more podcast listeners than people who watch the videos every week. And in the videos, I can put the artwork.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, I try and kind of explain what's going on, and also, yeah, maybe you're doing chores right now. Maybe you're washing the dishes or cooking your dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're gonna try something that I haven't tried before, and we're gonna jump around in this issue, and then I'm gonna try and edit everything together into one timeline at the end. So we'll see how this goes.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Michael and I chatted for quite a long time about all kinds of things, so we only managed to get to this page before he had to leave. So from here on out, I'm going to read my notes by myself like I would for a solo episode, but now and again I'll edit in Michael when he has something to say about the page that we're on. On a rocky plain, close to Mount St. Hilary, there's a sound, and far in the distance we can see a huge convoy just appearing over the horizon. It drives closer to the foreground, and the narration says that the stillness of the mountain is shaken by 15 four-wheeled vehicles approaching. The Autobots. And as I come to a stop, transforming into robot mode, I'm going to do something risky and try and name everyone here, but given how bad I am at identifying everyone and the inconsistent art and coloring, I'm bound to make a mistake, so forgive me, and if you spot one, let me know in the comments, please. So from left to right, we have Sideswipe, Puffer, Hound, I think next to him is Gears, Cliffjumper, Bumblebee, Brawn, then is that Prowl? No, Prowl is in the foreground here. Who's that? Sorry, I can't name that one. Right next to Ratchet's face is a square-ish purple face. I'm sorry, guy. I don't know who you are. And then there's a red and white one I also can't place. Wheeljack is at the end, and I think Mirage? Sunstreaker, who Ratchet previously said he can't repair, is missing. And so is Trailbreaker. But actually, so far, I think Trailbreaker has only appeared in the UK comics in the first place. So it lines up that he's not here. I just can't let go of his catastrophic destruction, and the callous way he was just forgotten about. Alright, help me out with the ones I missed, please. Sorry, this is hard. There are so many of them. In the foreground, in front of everyone else, is Prowl, who asks Ratchet how they all fared in this test run. and Ratchet says that he can't see any lasting side effects from their time as, if you want to be optimistic, their time as captives, but if you want to go for drama, time strung up as corpses. And that according to his instruments, everyone is back to peak condition. Nice job, Ratch. That was a major set of repairs that he pulled off perfectly, with some help from Wheeljack. He says that everyone was able to reach their max speed and that their transformations all seem to be successful without any problems too, except for Jazz, who's there in car form, and he asks Jazz if he's alright, to which Jazz replies, "Are you talking to me?" But just above Jazz are the lyrics, and there are some musical notes too. He's bumping Material World by Madonna. I mean, his name is Jazz, but I guess I wouldn't really have expected him to be into pop music, but I guess you need something with lyrics when it's a comic, right? When I was a kid, my mom sewed a lot, and she referred to the cloth that she used as material. So when I was little and she played this song, which she did a lot, I always thought the song was about a woman made of cloth, living on a planet made of cloth, like a little ragdoll girl on a ragdoll planet. It took me until my 20s or something until I heard that song again to be like, oh.
One of the first things I wanted to chat about, because I know you said you don't have any of the ads, right?
No, I don't.
So I'm a huge fan of old comics and kind of seeing what ads that they have.
Yeah, they were wild in the 80s and 90s.
Yes, and I just, there's only a couple that I think are fun. There's 3 that I'm gonna mention, right? Which just after, I think, what is this? The 3rd page? Yeah. So the 3rd page of the comic, after the page where the Autobots come in and it's like vroom, right? And they all transform. There's a Fig Newton.
I love those.
Ad, yes, and it's for all the different types of Newtons. So it's for Fig, it's for apple, cherry, blueberry, an ad for all of them. It's very hand drawn, and you're supposed to guess which one is which through like a word scramble. So for example, blueberry is like REBLERYBU, and you're supposed to unscramble the words, right?
Okay.
But the first one is fig, right? So the way they scrambled it was GIF. So it's GIF, right? It's
GIF.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this has aged perfectly because I would love a GIF Newton. And I'm just thinking of a GIF Newton. I'm thinking of a Newton stuffed with like memes,
It tastes like Doge.
It tastes like Doge. Oh my gosh. And then
That's so funny to try and scramble a 3-letter word. Oh, what could it be?
Yes, right? Oh my gosh. And then 2 pages later, is an ad for Twizzlers, and this one is just like, it's cool. It's just a drawing of a mouth, and it's just like, it's a really cool looking ad, and I just feel like there should be more hand-drawn ads and shit, like all over the place. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, Twizzlers are like the worst. I've tried like a bunch of American candy. Twizzlers just wax, isn't it? It's awful.
I
I don't like them at all.
So I do feel like I have I've actually read up a little bit about licorice in other places in the world.
Oh yeah,
And
completely
it is
different.
very, very different in the US. So Twizzlers licorice is just strawberry flavored licorice. What?
Yeah, I know. When I think licorice, I don't think that. That's why lots of American people don't like licorice, because it's not licorice.
Exactly, right? Like, so Americans are raised on Twizzlers and Red Vines, which are strawberry flavored licorice.
Okay, I'm gonna do big air quotes around licorice.
Okay, yes, air quoted.
Yeah.
Completely. Yes. And so I've had licorice from other places, right? And now like there's like new candy that's coming to the US from other places. There's been like a little bit more in the last like 3-4 years. Wally's is a brand that has come over. I don't know if that's but it's like different flavors of licorice, and the quality difference between Twizzlers and Wally's is night and day. Wally's actually it's wild. But it is like a beautifully drawn ad. And then my third ad that I would like to mention is that there is a Nesquik chocolate milk ad.
Oh yeah.
In which if you buy Nesquik chocolate milk, you can get a free baseball from Steve Garvey. From Steve Garvey. I don't know who the fuck Steve Garvey is, but I want a free
I have
baseball.
no idea.
I want my free baseball, man.
How do you get it? You just have to buy one pack of Nesquik? That doesn't seem cost effective.
I'm gonna read you this ad dramatically. All right, are you ready?
Great. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. To get your free baseball imprinted with Steve Garvey's signature, send 2 UPC barcodes from any Nesquik product, plus 75 cents to cover postage and handling, along with your name, address, and zip code on a 3x5-inch card. Make check or money order payable to Quick Free Baseball.
75? That seems pretty cheap. And then you only have to buy 2 packs?
Yeah, only 2 things of Nesquik.
That's pretty reasonable.
Pretty reasonable. Okay.
So, it depends how much Nesquik costs, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, at this point, probably much less than it would today.
Yeah.
But thank you for indulging my love of ads in old comic books and letting me chat about them.
Ratchet explains that Jazz is still in car mode, so he wonders if his transformation function is damaged. But Jazz says no, everything's cool. Ratchet says, cool? And Jazz says, yeah. He just didn't want to transform in the middle of the song and interrupt Madonna. Prowl says that he forgot about Jazz's interest in, quote, earthen ways. So we have Ratchet fascinated by humans and life on Earth, and now Jazz showing his love for human music, which I really hope makes a reappearance. I mentioned this previously too, but I'd love a whole series, or a whole issue of just Ratchet's adventures learning about Earth. And one for Jazz and maybe Blaster if he shows up. Going around appreciating Earth music would be really cool too. I don't think I'll get that wish, but let's see. Never say never with these comics. If I've learned anything, it's that besides smaller plot details, I cannot guess where these things are going to go. Madonna finishes, and the radio changes to a news bulletin with an announcement from GB Blackrock about his anti-robot weapons exhibition at 3 p.m. tomorrow at his racetrack. So, Capshaw wasn't able to convince him, despite how genial Blackrock made an effort to be at first. Ultimately, he ignored his request. But Jazz doesn't want to listen to that, so he transforms and complains about GB Blackrock's announcement. He noticed that GB said robots, and he thinks that all Transformers are alike. Jazz doesn't appreciate being lumped in with the Decepticons, but Prowl plays devil's advocate for GB and says that all he knows is some robots stole his plant and his rig. GB has no idea that the Decepticons are the one who did all that. Jazz suggests that GB could use someone to educate him about that, maybe even Jazz himself. Ratchet changes the subject and says that they have other priorities like recovering Optimus Prime's head and reattaching it to his body. He guesses that the Decepticons took it with them to one of the facilities that they just acquired. Prowl agrees and says that with the amount of fuel they have remaining, they can't consider a full-scale rescue operation now. Ratchet follows that logic and says, as the Autobots, they can't steal fuel from humans. But Jazz says getting fuel is a piece of cake. Prowl is confused and says cake is fuel? Which actually, technically, yeah. Just not for you guys, I guess. Jazz, now in car mode, says that from his studies on humans, he knows the best way to get something from them is to offer something in return. Prowl asks what it is that Autobots can offer in return for help, and Jazz says, protection. And now he's going to go and visit Mr. Blackrock and attempt to make a deal with him. Prowl, who, in an interesting little detail, seems to have taken command of the Autobots, which actually lines up with the first issue, I think, in which it's stated that Prowl is Prime's right-hand man. I think at the time I said that was debatable, but it makes sense for him to step in now that he's repaired and Prime is currently inactive. All this I gleaned from his line here, which is, as my Special Operations Officer. So he's confirming Jazz's role, and he also says, my there, which says to me that he's taken charge. He says that as Special Operations Officer, Jazz has his complete trust, and that he can take Wheeljack with him as a backup. Another move that makes sense. Wheeljack is the mechanic, and he knows about the physical workings of the other Transformers, so he's a good pick to go and see what fuel GB has they could potentially use. Prowl says that he wishes he knew what he just gave the two of them permission to do exactly, but Wheeljack tells him not to worry. If Jazz doesn't know what to do or say, he'll be there to improvise, which he says is his speciality. But Jazz is named Jazz. Surely improvising is his... You know what, Autobodies? Transform and roll with it. As they make their way to Blackrock's racecourse, Wheeljack asks Jazz how he's planning to get the fuel, and Jazz replies that you can get anything in, quote, the free enterprise system. I had to look that up. It just means capitalism, so basically everything is available for a price. Though what Jazz knows about capitalism and the concept of money, it must be pretty limited, right? But that's his plan so far, according to him. At BlackRock's aerospace plant, Starscream is complaining to Shockwave about Megatron, bemoaning the news that the Autobots have reawakened and retaken control of the Ark, all thanks to Megatron's incompetence. And Guardian being beaten again, but that didn't happen as far as US comic readers know. To make matters worse, Megatron has now disappeared and is surely plotting something against the Decepticons by now. He tells Shockwave that he should have destroyed Megatron when he overthrew him. Shockwave isn't bothered by this outburst at all. He says that the Autobots are no threat and that they're half defeated in the first place thanks to their ethical code of not stealing energy from the humans. As for Megatron, it defies all logic that Megatron would return to try and challenge him again because, at least to Shockwave, it's obvious that Megatron can't possibly stand a chance against him. He's more concerned with the plant's human workers, who he has realized are inefficient. Perhaps he could reprogram their... But Frenzy interrupts him to tell him about BlackRock's weapons demonstration, which he heard about on the radio. Frenzy himself is riled up because of BlackRock's talk of anti-robot weapons. He continues his outburst, saying that he'll show BlackRock he's going to, quote, ram this entire jet down his vocal module piece by piece, and he pushes a human worker out of his way to grab a part of the jet that he's working on. Frenzy says, and then I'll... But Shockwave gives Frenzy the thumbs down, telling him that threats from humans are not even worthy of Decepticon notice, and his plans have no room for Frenzy's half-baked flights of fancy. Frenzy throws a real tantrum. He says he's mad and somebody has to pay and he wants to smash something. And it looks like he's jumping up and down and stomping his foot, like a 2-year-old. Behind him there is a human worker cowering, and another is dragging away the one Frenzy knocked down earlier. Shockwave has no patience for this, and only has to say Buzzsaw's name for them to know what to do. Buzzsaw flies through the length of metal that Frenzy was holding, which startles him, and he's knocked off balance, remarking about how easily Buzzsaw was able to slice through it. Shockwave tells him that the next time he's insubordinate, Buzzsaw will be aiming lower than his hand. And he clarifies, just to make sure Frenzy gets it, and says, for your wrist. And that seems to be enough to calm down and frighten Frenzy, who says, yes, Commander Shockwave. Starscream suggests that maybe causing a bit of a panic among the humans would be good for morale, and the Decepticons have been inactive for quite some time. The humans don't pose any danger to them, and he says that the Decepticons have been inactive for quite some time and that humans don't pose any danger to them. Shockwave says that Starscream's observation is logical, and that Starscream should take Frenzy and go destroy the weapon that BlackRock is going to be demonstrating. Actually, I don't know if Shockwave agrees with Starscream so much as he'll take the opportunity to have Frenzy and Starscream just both go away and leave him alone. Starscream obeys and says, as you command. And Shockwave says that he has other things to take care of. He walks to another area of the plant where Optimus's head is still on those green spider leg-like beams. In front of him are the 6 new Decepticon lives that Shockwave created, using the last remnants of the Matrix that were left in Prime's mind after he transferred it to Buster. Shockwave comments on those 6 lives, which are currently sitting on some kind of, long green rectangle. Before, they were pictured looking like 6 separate Big Mac boxes, but now they're all together on whatever that thing is. He says that Prime must be taking great pleasure to see that they're all still doing well, but Prime says nothing about the Decepticons gives him any pleasure at all, except knowing that, quote, their evil shall ultimately be destroyed. I love that careful wording. I wonder how intentional it was on Budiansky's part to say that their evil would be destroyed, not that the Decepticons themselves would be destroyed. That totally fits for Prime. Shockwave picks up one of the, what he calls, brain modules, and it's small enough to fit on the end of his finger. He says that within it is all the circuitry and programming needed to create a new Transformer life. All it needs now is a body to be whole. He raises it to Prime's eyeline and tells him that he was the one who created this life with the creation matrix. It's only logical that such a thing should bring Prime joy, but Prime tells him that such use of the matrix is a perversion of its sacred purpose, and that while he did create the new life with it, he did so involuntarily. Shockwave having forced him into doing it only makes Prime more driven to stop Shockwave's plans. Shockwave says, how unfortunate you find your role so distressing. I think, in my mind, now, this version of Shockwave has Zachary Quinto's voice. Like, you know how he does Spock? He plays Spock kind of straight and very, his voice doesn't modulate so much. It stays kind of a very calm tone the whole time. That's how I think Shockwave talks. How unfortunate you find your role so distressing. Because he plans to use Prime and the Matrix to build many more new Decepticons. A whole army of them. Prime thinks to himself that that's going to prove a difficult task for Shockwave because he's implanted the Matrix inside Buster's brain, and Shockwave will never find out who Buster is. And speaking of Buster, we join him now at the repair shop, having a conversation on the phone with a customer who is still waiting for their car to be repaired, 3 weeks after they left it at the shop. Buster explains to the customer, who of course gets a name, though we're formal this time, he's Mr. Fishbane, that he's talking to Buster Witwicky because Sparkplug is in the hospital. It seems Mr. Fishbane's attitude doesn't change after finding that out though, because Buster says that he understands he needs his car back, and yes, he can imagine how difficult it is to sell vacuum cleaners by bicycle. Which is a funny image, and must be what Mr. Fishbane is stuck doing now without his car. Buster asks Mr. Fishbane to give him one more day before he comes and takes his car to another garage, Mr. Scarpatone's. But Buster says, "Hello?" And scratching his head, he realizes that Mr. F has hung up, and you can't really blame him. He does a bit of exposition, telling us that his dad could fix the car blindfolded, if he wasn't still recovering from his heart attack. He says it's too bad Sparkplug couldn't raise him to follow in his footsteps, though he did try. That comes off as such a weird thing to say in a strange way of looking at it. Too bad I didn't follow in his footsteps, is what Buster probably should have said. Praising it the way he did puts the blame on Sparkplug, which I think is unfair. Not that Buster should be blamed for wanting to make his own choices, but that's what happened. He decided he wants to do something else, and that's fine, but don't go putting the blame on your dad. Anyway, he decides to give the engine he's working on another try. Maybe he can fix something if he sticks at it. But he says, "No, I'm still messing up. I just don't know what I'm doing." This is too relatable for me, given my recent misadventure trying to build a very simplified model kit. But Buster says he can't stop. His dad isn't here, and he's taking care of the business while he's away. He doesn't want the business to start to fail while Sparkplug is away. Plus, given their exchanges in earlier issues, Sparkplug would be so proud of Buster if he was able to do this, and I think there's an element of that in this desperation to succeed at this too. He resolves to keep trying, but he gets another one of those sudden headaches he's been having ever since he, shocked himself quite badly in the brain at the instruction of Optimus Prime. He drops the wrench he's using, and he puts his hand on his head. And there's like a green starburst emanating from behind it, and some dramatic speed lines at the edges of the panel, and the engine starts floating. Buster is aware enough this time to be sure that what he thought had happened before is happening again. It hadn't been a dream. Objects really are levitating, and he says aloud, "How?" And then suddenly he realizes that he completely understands the engine and how it works. It's as simple to him as breathing, and there's a close-up of his eye as all of this is sparked in his mind. He wonders how he could have been so blind before, and a narration box says that Buster repairs the entire engine with a single thought. But how he did that is still a mystery even to him. And this reminded me of that part in Watchmen where Dr. Manhattan takes apart a very complex machine with his mind, keeping all the parts floating in place. And we leave him there to head back to BlackRock Enterprises corporate headquarters. GB BlackRock is there, working late, but he's about to get an unexpected visit from somebody, and we can't see who it is here, but they're walking up to the building wearing a trench coat. A hand electrocutes the lock of the entrance door, and a mystery person, face hidden by the shadow of a big hat, walks by a security camera. The guard is distracted by the magazine they're reading, and if you zoom in a bit, you can see that he's reading Playboy, but I'm sure he's only reading it for the articles. The camera follows them as they go further into the building, so they shock it. In GB's office, the phone rings, and at the same time, the security guard notices that one of the cameras has shorted out, and he wonders if it's broken. The hand of the intruder shocks the elevator's control panel, and the door opens, and we see their feet as they appear to go up on tiptoes. The camera the guard was looking at seems to have only malfunctioned momentarily because he notices that it starts to work again. And then we see that the person didn't board the elevator, and instead levitated up the elevator shaft, with the doors they want to use to exit already open to let them out. Even if you can fly, that's an extremely dangerous thing to do. If the elevator starts moving with them in there, they could easily be crushed. GB answers his phone and says, "Yes, doctor." The doctor on the end of the line explains to GB that Josie is missing from her hospital bed, and the only way she could have exited the hospital without being seen is through a window, a 5th-story window. GB stammers that he'll call the doctor back, which is overheard by the person in the green trench coat as they grasp the handle of the office door. Somehow, in the art, the sign on his door, which I assume is meant to say GB BlackRock, because we can see that there's a BL there of BlackRock, but the first two letters say JB instead of GB. I think that's a little mistake there. The person enters and says, "Hello, Mr. BlackRock," and dramatically drops the coat and the hat, all in silhouette, and BlackRock is stunned as he stands up and shouts, "Josie!" Which, yeah, I kept my description vague until the reveal, but come on. Was there anyone who didn't figure that out? And there's this awesome full-page picture here of Josie, now a circuit breaker, standing in GB's office in this power stance with her legs apart. One hand is on her hip and her hair is wild, and she looks so confident. And like on the cover, she's covered by metal strips, and she has shoes made of metal that cover her feet and her toes. And the metal goes up her legs, leaving parts of her skin uncovered, but it forms kind of an underwear shape at the top of her legs. And it's the same for her chest. It's covered, but there's still skin showing. They're treading this line extremely carefully. She even has wrist guards and like finger covers, and half of her face is covered with just a hole for her eye.
I really wanted to talk about page 10 and 11. This is
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
This is, yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to mention before we get to page 11, which is like the splash page of Circuit Breaker,
Yeah.
is page 10 is wildly cool. One thing I noticed in this comic, which I thought was cool, is that all of the panels are pretty much on a grid, meaning like, there's like 3, 3, 3, 2, 3, 2. There's not much variation in panel size or panel shape or amount of panels, but this one really has a lot, and it's such a dramatic lead up to the reveal of Circuit Breaker. And I thought, like, wow, what a good play, right? Like a good play with design and panels on a page.
Yes, I'm totally with you. That's super cool, and it does keep you. I mean, they're trying to keep you guessing, like, oh, who is this? But they put her on the cover, so it's like this whole cool moment you've already wasted.
Exactly. And one of the things that was awesome about this page that I wanted to note was, in the class that I'm teaching now, my students have to draw comics, and so none of them are comic book artists, right? And so they're all coming from like an amateur place.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk about is paneling and how to not confuse your readers. And there's just a classic confusion here, which is on the bottom half of it, we see Circuit Breaker's like legs. Then the guy saying, "Oh, it cleared up." And then are we supposed to go to the red room on the right?
Yeah.
Or below?
I think she's flowing. She goes. You see her feet, and she's like opening the elevator shaft, and then he's like, "Oh, the camera's fixed." Then she's flying up the elevator shaft. I think that's what the red thing is.
That's correct. Yes. Okay.
But then, it's not clear if you're supposed to go down to the left where GB's on the phone.
Yes. Okay. And that, it's just like the paneling is interesting. But then it's that panel where she says, "Hello, Mr. Blackrock," and he's like, "Josie," like it's just
and she's all in silhouette, and you can see she's throwing off the trench coat that she's been wearing for no reason, but to
reveal Circuit Breaker in all her nude glory, I guess. So in this moment, this is the one where like this costume, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like this is intense. Like specifically, like the way in which it forms to her body, and I think the right word here that I'm looking for is the cod piece, right? Like the piece in front, right?
Yeah.
It's just so in too much detail. It's just
there's a lot of shading on there.
There's so much shading.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, and this was the moment where like when you were like, am I being too sensitive? I was like, on this page you are not being too sensitive.
You think?
This is absurd.
Like it is,
Like this
but
is
she's doing this real power stance, and her hair is wild. It's kind of cool, but it's just the level of. It's not even nudity. That's the thing. She's, her chest is covered and the groin is covered, and then everything else it's also covered, but it's not completely. So her skin is poking through, like showing through. It's really hard to know how to feel about it.
I know. I will say, like, this is pretty explicitly sexy for a comic coming out in the 80s. And one of the things I noticed here as well is that I don't know on your cover if it has the like little tag that says like, oh, the comics code little tag.
It's on the top left of mine, under the Optimus Prime in the corner. Yeah, it says approved by the Comics Code Authority. Yeah, it's a little thing there.
So my edition, I think, was a direct mail edition, not one that was on the newsstand. So like, so those don't usually come with the comics code. But so okay, fine, it has the comics code on there. But this is such an interesting like flag, because in the 70s this would not have flown. Like this would not have been acceptable in Marvel DC, but there's like some ways that people got around it. It wasn't always like as explicit, but it is interesting that like the comics code is on there and they're like, "Hey, here's this woman who's technically covered, and I wonder if the design is purposely made so that it covers a specific percentage of her skin to fit the comics code, because I
Oh, I
know,
bet.
yes, yeah, I know that was a
I
thing.
bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all the parts that are out, like it's her leg and like some of her like midriff, like belly
Yeah.
button is covered,
Yes,
and like
belly
there's
button's
no
covered.
like her chest is covered, but it's also uncovered enough that you get an idea of how big her chest is. And
Yes.
actually,
Oh my
even
god.
one of I don't know how to say this gently. One of her tits is hanging out a bit underneath the silver covering, so
Yes.
it's
Yes.
yeah. I really don't know how I feel about it.
Yes, it's an explicitly sexual image, and I think it's like so clearly like teenage boy coded, right? Like we are gonna
Yeah,
make
yeah,
this
yeah,
woman like an object for like boys to like ogle or like look at for a long time.
yeah,
But then if you to like go to the next page, right? Because like that, I mean, listen, if we had all the time in the world, we could just talk about this page, this splash page
yeah,
forever, right?
yeah,
But the next page is where she's showing BlackRock like all the things that she can do.
Josie/Circuit Breaker proclaims that she came to work for GB BlackRock and that she wants to help him destroy the robots. All of them. So just in case it wasn't made clear enough to readers before, she's making sure that you know she's going to fight Autobots as well as Decepticons. GB is flabbergasted. He had no idea about what Josie was doing in the hospital. As far as he knows, all she made was that levitating camera thing from earlier. He asks her how she's here. He just saw her this morning, and at the time she was still paralyzed. She says that she still is, but she'll show him. And she tells him to press this, like, circular button thing on her shoulder. And when he does, the circuitry starts to unravel and come away from her body. I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that there's a reason we're being shown this massive flaw in her exoskeleton now, before she starts any trouble. I'll eat my hat if this doesn't end up becoming how she's beaten, in at least one fight, if not for good. She shows him her now limp arm, which she cannot move at all without the circuitry strips attached. She explains that she designed the suit to replicate the functions of her nervous system, so as long as she has it on, she's able to do anything that she could do before the accident. And more, she demonstrates with the computer BlackRock has on his desk. It goes off the rails here, I mean, even more than it kind of has already, because now, for some reason, Josie can access and manipulate any file on any computer, no matter how well protected it is, using, well, she has to like shock the computer to do it, but she doesn't use the keyboard. So it's kind of like this bolt of electricity that is connected between her and the computer. I assume that allows her to use her brain to do it. Moving your body with the aid of circuitry is one thing. Far-fetched in the 80s, but we do have similar technology now. But this is barely even possible now, and not to the degree that she's talking about. They kind of buried the lead with having this one be a one-panel explanation, if you ask me. This is wild and raises all kinds of questions about what she can do, but they do specifically make sure to point out, taking a small panel to do so, that she can disrupt the operation of computers and computer files. All of this really feels like a ground-laying exposition dump for very specific circumstances which are going to come up later, doesn't it? Like how James Bond gets the exact gadget he's going to need for the exact situation he finds himself in later. Anyway, don't worry about it for too long, because Josie's about to test your suspension of disbelief even further by showing you that she can also fly now too. The same way that she showed us the little green machine flying earlier, by repelling herself away from metal objects as the circuitry strips make thousands of adjustments to her movement every second. As if that makes it any less ludicrous. But you know what I always say by now, Autobodies? Transform and roll with it. I mean, like I said before, at least they're trying to make some sort of attempt to explain how and why she can do these things. It's a Marvel comic. I feel like they'd be totally content to just say she got an electric shock and then suddenly gain these powers and leave it at that. So silly as all this is, I do appreciate that they at least took the time to try.
We do get a few images of her from behind, right? Where like she's turning in weird ways, but like you said before, there's not like a lot of cheesecake poses, right? There's not a lot of
No, not too much.
not too much. I mean, a little bit, but not a ton. Even this, so if we're on page, was this 12, right? The second
12.
panel on page 12 shows her from behind, but it blacks out a lot.
It does
And
black out a lot, but then specifically there's like one curve at the bottom to be like, here's what her butt looks like. But
yes, exactly. You
it's
hit
explicit and not
exactly
explicit at the same time.
exactly. And it is so interesting because, like you said, it seems like they're trying to run a really thin line of, hey, look at
Yeah.
this sexy character, but also we're trying to treat this character humanely, but like, look how sexy she is, which are conflicting ideas, right? If you are drawing a character to just be a sex object, right? Like, you're going to make certain choices versus drawing a female character that is just like a character that happens to be female. Like,
Right.
and it seems like they're stuck in this like, I want to draw sexy, but I want this character to be real. Sexy. Real character. Sexy? Real
Yeah.
character? Yeah, like
It's like
back
she's a
and forth.
human. She's the first human who fights any of the Transformers. So she's a
Oh,
really strong,
interesting.
powerful character,
Yeah.
and the first kind of major female character. So it's kind of a shame they had to be like, let's make her really sexy.
Yes.
I can see it from a business standpoint why you do that. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of gross, but it
Yeah.
will sell books. So mhm.
Yes, exactly, right?
Circuit Beller hasn't finished yet though. She shows off how she can use the, quote, atomic-powered batteries within the circuitry to produce a big energy blast from her hands, strong enough to destroy the little toy robot GB has there on his desk, with a spakow. She says that was only a fraction of her power. So, Mr. Blackrock, when do we start going after these robots? And Blackrock, having seen all this, is really brave here and sticks to his guns. He says, we aren't doing anything. The best thing Josie can do right now is go back to the hospital and rest. He tells her that the robots have already hurt her once and that he won't let them do it again. So he really does seem to feel guilty about what happened to her and to be genuinely concerned about her health. And he tries to reassure her that he's going to do everything in his power to stop the robots without her help. But as he says no, she's in the foreground, coloured all in red, and she's scowling and she storms out and tells Blackrock to do what he wants. But she's going to do what she wants too. And it's the next day now, and there's a huge crowd gathered at Blackrock Speedway to see Blackrock's weapons test. In the center of the track, journalists swarm GB, asking him various questions. Is it true that the weapon he's about to demonstrate uses nuclear missiles? Is it true that he's planning to run for Senate? Is it true that all of this is just a stunt to boost attendance at his languishing raceway? Which makes it sound like all of this was a ticketed event, which, actually, that's pretty smart. GB says that he'll explain everything later, and Ames gives GB a report saying that they have people out and searching, but that nobody has managed to find Josie. GB tells him to have them stay at their posts and tell them not to even blink. And as he rounds a corner, he thinks to himself that he's sure Josie is close by, watching him and planning to do something. This part is a bit wonky for me. If Josie wanted to kill GB, she could easily have done that in his office. But if what she truly wants is revenge on the robots, killing GB would be a terrible idea because he has made clear his intentions were also to stop the robots. They are not working together, so I guess if she absolutely has to be the one to be doing whatever it is that takes out any of the Transformers they come across, that's a reason for her to bump him off. But then, in that case, why suggest a partnership? Maybe if they'd agreed, she'd have made that part of the terms later, but as it is, there's way more benefit to keeping him alive for her than to killing him. GB says that he wishes he could figure out what she's going to do, which also makes kind of little sense. She wants revenge on the Transformers, so I'd have expected her to be trying to get that by going to where she knows they are, because she was there when Shockwave took the rig. But for some reason, he's sure she's going to come for him. And that's when Jazz arrives and somehow maneuvers his way in front of GB, so that when he swings his door open, he's blocking his path. GB is confused and wonders aloud how the door of an empty car just opened itself in front of him. But Jazz swings it closed, and instead of just breaking his shins or smacking him in the face, it scoops him inside somehow because, that's because that's what Jazz needed it to do. GB isn't amused and figures someone is playing a trick on him, and he asks who it is and what's going on here. Jazz's voice comes from the radio, telling GB that he's here to talk business, so GB should just relax in the seat. And GB yells, "What?" Jazz starts driving him away, across the lanes of the raceway and out into the grass. People are running to get out of his way, and it makes it look a lot like Jazz isn't being very careful about it. And GB asks, "Who said that?" Jazz says, "Call me Jazz." And for some reason, GB's reply is so funny to me. He asks, "Jazz? What's a jazz?" As if the word doesn't mean anything at all in his mind. Like, GB is that much of a square, he doesn't even know what jazz is. He's never heard the word jazz and understood from context that it's a musical genre. Wow. And Jazz replies, in a line that you can just hear in Scatman Crothers' voice, "It's my name, Mac, don't wear it out." GB still thinks that all of this is a setup, and he says that the joke's gone far enough now, and he suspects that someone is controlling the car by remote control, and he tells them to stop. In the art, we can see that they've driven out of the raceway now and into the public roads with cars swerving to avoid Jazz. Jazz says that nobody controls him, he controls himself. And GB hasn't heard the offer he's going to make yet. Surely a businessman like him should understand how these things go. GB starts to panic a bit and yells, "Let me out of here!" Jazz manages to stay cool because, of course he does, he's Jazz. And he tells GB that he's here on behalf of the Autobots with a deal to offer him. GB says Autobots, which gives Jazz the opportunity to explain that humans would just call them robots, but actually they're not the robots who stole GB's plant, those were the Decepticons, which GB repeats, "Decepticons?" And Jazz carries the conversation forward by saying, "Yes, but they're the bad guys, the Autobots aren't in league with them. In fact, they're trying to stop them. But to do that, they need fuel." And again, GB repeats, "Fuel?" prompting Jazz to ask him, "Is there an echo in here?" But he continues, saying that he's done his research on GB, and he knows he has refineries and gas stations all over the world. Which is news to us, actually, but I guess that's where all his oil from his rig goes. The amount of fuel the Autobots would need would be a tiny fraction of the fuel GB has. And in exchange, the Autobots would protect him from the Decepticons and get back his plant. So, he says, is it a deal? And in the foreground, a cop watches them drive by from a police car. GB's back on echo mode and he says, "Deal?" And he's breaking out in a sweat now, and Jazz gives GB his word that the Autobots are the good guys. GB notices that the police car is chasing them now. Jazz must really have been gunning it, as well as driving pretty recklessly earlier. And he tells Jazz that the police want them to slow down. Jazz says that slowing down isn't his style, but that the police are welcome to try and keep up with him. And he heads towards the barricade at the side of the road. GB is really scared now, and he screams, "No!" asking Jazz if his plan was to kill him all along. Jazz says, "Kill you?" But he still hasn't signed to solidify the deal yet. And midway through crashing through the barrier and off a cliff, he transforms, which throws GB out of his seat. Luckily, because it would have been really unfortunate if he got chewed up inside there. So that's when Jazz is in robot mode, and he can catch him in his hands. Now that GB can see Jazz's robot form, he says, "You really are a robot." Somehow he managed to survive that terrifying ordeal, being driven off a cliff and then flung into midair, without having much of a reaction to it at all afterwards. Maybe he's in shock, because that could probably kill me, I think. Jazz explains, "I'm an Autobot. If I was a Decepticon, I would have let you bounce me a few times before scraping you off the road." The TF Wiki suggests, and I agree, that the "me" in that sentence probably shouldn't have been there, and it makes more sense for Jazz to say that he'd have let GB bounce on the ground than it does for him to say GB would bounce him. He asks GB again, "Do we have a deal?" And GB accepts now, for some reason. I don't know what about having the absolute crap scared out of him made him decide to trust Jazz, but maybe he really is in shock. Up on the ridge, the police officers from the patrol car report back to headquarters, but they say that they're not even really sure what it is they're calling in. Next, we're in the air above the raceway with Starscream and Frenzy. Starscream spots the target and tells Frenzy that that structure is what they're aiming for, which is vague. I actually couldn't tell exactly what it was he was talking about from this panel. Frenzy doesn't seem to care anyway, he just tells Starscream to get there faster. He's really in the mood to smash something up, isn't he? Even the journey there wasn't enough to let him cool off. Down on the ground, GB is back at the raceway and beginning his speech at the unveiling of the weapon. He greets everyone present and everyone watching at home and says that what he's about to show them is going to solve the problem of the giant robots terrorizing their towns, and he says, "endangering the safety of our children." GB, Shockwave was a 50-foot flying, talking gun. I just don't think he really needed to add in children. He's just doing that to get a reaction, right? They're endangering everybody. The sheet covering the colossal gun we saw at the end of Wrath of Grimlock is dropped, and GB introduces the anti-robotic photonic multi-cannon, powerful enough to eliminate these robots with one blast. And to prove it and demonstrate the weapon's power, he's had a 40-foot robot replica created, which wouldn't be good enough for me. That thing isn't a real Transformer, and he had it made himself for the purposes of this demonstration. That's not a fair test, is it? Anyway, the crowd of thousands falls into silence, and GB throws the lever to activate the cannon, which just sputters and smokes a little bit and does nothing. Slowly, laughter begins to build in the crowd, echoed, it says, by the millions watching on TV around the world. And GB can hear every single one. And we can see him there, slamming his fist on the control console. I can't blame him, that's got to be excruciatingly embarrassing. And right now, at possibly the worst possible moment for BlackRock, Josie, who I'll stop calling Josie now, she's Circuit Breaker, decides to make her appearance. She says, "Hello, Mr. BlackRock," and GB yells back, "Josie!" He realizes that she did this, and it's thanks to her meddling that the cannon failed to fire. She says that it was easy for her to interfere with the cannon, especially after she stole all the information and blueprints about it from GB BlackRock's computer back when she was showing her new powers to him in his office. She says that now he has no choice but to say that she was the real secret weapon all along. So that's pretty clever. She's made it so that to save face, he has to give her what she wants and say that he's working with her. But I'm sure everyone would have questions about the cannon and the theatrics with that. Like, why would someone do that if they really planned to reveal that their weapon was actually a human in a suit? Circuit Breaker's plan is pretty far-fetched too. Sure, he might have to say that now to stop him from looking foolish, but just doing that now while the cameras are on and the raceway is full of people, there's no guarantee that he'll honor that later. He has no real motivation to actually go along with it. But he puts his palm on his forehead and he thinks to himself that she's right. But he doesn't have long now to consider what to do because Starscream, in jet mode and flying extremely low, arrives at the racetrack and tells everyone present that they should surrender immediately to the will of Starscream. And jumping out of the cockpit in cassette mode, Frenzy says, "Or else fall to the sonic fury of frenzy! Ha ha ha!" And he starts letting out a sonic pulse, and it looks like circles are emanating from his body, and the humans surrounding him are covering their ears and falling over, and we can see CB and GB there. Frenzy lifts a nearby truck over his head, still laughing, but his laughter has one ha, and then an exclamation mark, and then 3 has connected by hyphens, and one more exclamation mark. So, ha! Ha ha ha! GB calls out to Jazz, who says he gets the message, and that he and GB are business partners now, implying that he's going to help. Jazz transforms to robot mode, and Frenzy is surprised to see him, saying, an Autobot here? He doesn't intend to pay Jazz much mind though, because he says he'll be a flaming piece of junk once he takes care of him. But now Circuit Breaker involves herself, and again, she makes a strange choice. She saw Starscream threaten everyone present, and then Frenzy let out a debilitating sound and lift a van over his head. But upon seeing Jazz transform, decides that of the 3 robots present, to attack him. Strategy needs work, CB. Like, come on, what are you thinking? So she yells, "Another robot! Thank you for acknowledging the 2 other far more dangerous and aggressive robots which you have declined to attack." She tells Jazz that he'll be the first to feel the searing power of Circuit Breaker, and she throws a bolt of electricity. And I'll at least give her credit for this. She aims for Jazz's hand and gun, so she tries to disarm him, at least. But it doesn't work though, and Jazz asks her to be cool. She's disrupting his rifle. But he gets cut off when Starscream announces that they're still working and drops a cluster bomb on him from behind, which explodes. And Jazz screams out and falls forward. He's down on the ground, fire still on his back, and he's holding his head in his hands. GB pleads with Circuit Breaker to stop attacking Jazz because he's an ally. But she won't listen and says that he's a robot and therefore must be destroyed. For somebody so incredibly smart, Circuit Breaker is, pretty dumb, right? If anyone should be the target of her rage, it's Shockwave, trying to indiscriminately kill any and all giant robots, the number of which you have no clue about, because of something only one of them did, and you know which one? Just isn't a logical MO, if you ask me. After dropping the cluster bomb, Starscream starts firing on the stands, which are rammed full of people, and he's telling them all to run away. I don't really know why he'd do that, but that's what he's doing. Some people at the bottom there are able to flee, but there's going to be some horrible trampling deaths in the stands, I think. Wheeljack in car mode starts talking, and at first there are 2 people standing close by. When he's mid-transformation, they've noticed something is up, and they've stopped walking. And in the third shot, when he's fully transformed, they've started to run away. Wheeljack says that he's been on the sidelines for too long now, and he's going to show what he can do. Frenzy is still holding the green van in the air, and Wheeljack taunts him by telling him he'll soon be joining the scrap heap, and he fires his shoulder-mounted gun, saying, "Have a magnetic power bath, Con." And whatever it is he uses to fire the powder, it packs a hell of a punch because it sends Frenzy backwards, completely off his feet, and he drops the van. He recovers and gets up quickly, but he's confused. A bunch of objects are all flying towards him. Wheeljack jokes that they must find him attractive, but Starscream butts in, saying that he finds Wheeljack to be his next victim. And in the same panel, behind Wheeljack, Circuit Breaker starts flying in the air. Her energy aura thing is yellow and she's colored all red, so she looks like Phoenix actually, if you know X-Men. Starscream panics and starts to fall out of the air, saying that he's losing power, and realizes that Circuit Breaker is somehow messing with his electronics. But he says that it's only a human, and Circuit Breaker snaps back, and therefore you're better, robot. Wheeljack thanks Circuit Breaker for helping him out in a pinch, and he calls her friend, which enrages her. She's angry that Wheeljack presumes that they are friends just because she helped him, and she calls him a wretched robot, turning her electrical energy blast on him next. They both go into silhouette, and she gets some distance on him before blasting him. Wheeljack falls backwards with an "Aye!" and Circuit Breaker says that once her power recharges, but before she said the blasts come from batteries within the circuitry she's wearing, so I don't know how it can recharge in the middle of a fight unless she stops to replace them. Anyway, she says that once she recharges, she's going to kill Wheeljack. GB tries to talk some sense into her and says that her hatred of robots is impairing her judgment. She doesn't know what she's doing. Close by, Starscream recovers and transforms into what the narration calls here his secret mode, which I think is just robot mode. He calls to Frenzy, who he grabs by the hand. He says that they didn't expect opposition like this. A demonstration for a weapon specifically designed to fight you guys? Okay. And that next time, they'll be better prepared. So Starscream retreats with poor Frenzy, who lets out a groan. And GB is still trying to reason with Circuit Breaker, telling her that he understands her desire for revenge, and that he feels it too, but that she has to see that not all of the robots are their enemies, and that Wheeljack and Jazz are friendly. He knows she's only doing this because she feels that she owes him, which is a wild take. Attacking him to force him to work with her does not come off as feeling obligation to me. But that's his read on the situation. He continues over the page that he feels like he owes her because he allowed her to be injured in the first place. And he wraps up by saying that he doesn't want her to do this for him, and that he doesn't want her help if it means bringing harm to innocent beings. Circuit Breaker fires her energy blast again, this time at the mock-up robot GB has been planning to test his cannon on. It explodes and falls to burning pieces. She lands and tells GB that now they're even. Whatever she felt she owed to him has been repaid, but next time they see each other will be as two separate parties, and she's going to be acting on her own. And his words are not going to sway her ever again. So it sounds like she really was doing this out of a feeling of obligation to GB, even when she sabotaged him to force his hand. I don't know. The feeling that you owe someone and then intentionally making their plans go wrong doesn't add up to me, but transform and roll with it. Her speech made, Circuit Breaker turns to leave. Poor Wheeljack is face down on the floor with a smoking hole in his back. He looks very badly damaged on his first trip out since he was repaired, what feels like days ago. Jazz asks GB what Circuit Breaker meant by what she said, and GB explains that by deciding to act this way, Circuit Breaker has become the very thing she despises the robots for being, an emotionless, inhuman killer. And even though she was the only one involved in this fight who left unscathed, she is the only one who truly lost. And the very last thing on this page is a pink box which tells us next issue will involve the Constructicons.
The last few pages where she comes back and she fights the Decepticons and the Autobots, but seems to be fighting mainly the Autobots because they're physically near her. She's just attacking all the robots, right? Is interesting because like you said, she's actually we get some images of her from behind or up in the air, but she's in the background almost, and so her suit actually looks like it covers all of her body in some of these images.
They've been so careful with it.
Yeah, I'm specifically looking at, what page am I on? It starts, ha ha ha, Jazz. Understood, GB. We're partners after all. In that page, we get a bit of Circuit Breaker, but in the third panel and the sixth panel, it almost looks like her suit's different because it covers different parts of her body in the background or covers most of it. And I thought that was an interesting choice that they weren't putting her in front. If they wanted to make her a sexy or the stereotypical cheesecake character where we're only looking at her for her body, they would put her in the front of the panel and the robots in the back, but they don't. They reverse that. It's the robots are still the selling point. It's the Autobots and the Decepticons, cars that turn into robots still are in front, and she gets put behind, and that's I don't know, is that Is that bad? Is that good? That's weird.
I really don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it might have been a percentage thing where maybe they could only show her X amount of times or something. What
Yeah.
it kind of feels a bit like this is for your dad. This is like get your dad to buy this for you, so he can read that part, and then you can have fun with the Transformers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's like kids movies, right? Where they add in the adult jokes, so
Yeah,
that
I
like
love
the parents, yes, so that the parents wanna sit through it. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's so weird. I think she's
yeah.
probably a major character that stays on for a while too. I really wonder what's going to happen with her. But like, as you said, she even when she was going to that office, she had a trench coat on, and then she threw it off just to be like, "Look at me." So she knows what she's doing,
Yes.
and she kind of
Yes.
is doing that on purpose. I don't know if I agree with that, but yeah, there's no
Yeah.
reason for her not to wear clothes at some point. she she could
Exactly.
really toughen up if she wanted to, but she doesn't want to.
Yes. And it's very interesting. Um, yeah. Interesting character introduction here that's complicated. And I do think that she comes back in issues that come up later. Because
Yeah.
the little bit of lookup that I did on her, it seemed like she's in a bunch of issues, and she might even be in some G.I. Joe comics as well. Okay, so can we talk about the last page? Because
Yeah, I was just looking at that because that is the most booby that she gets. The last page, they kind of show her from the side at least
yes,
twice, where you can really see the curve of her chest.
yes. And she
And well, it's so prominent, and especially that first panel. Jeez.
but it is a cool walk-off panel that in the
Yeah,
middle, like, of that page, they do a really interesting, like, visual move there where in like, they could have separated that into another panel, but instead, like, she's there in the front, and then time has passed, she's moving, and you only see her silhouette, which is
yeah.
the part that says, "But the next time we meet." And what's really cool about it is that if you notice the middle panel and the right panel share the same background almost.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. So it's like a time skip of her turning and
Yeah.
walking away.
Yes, it's really interesting what they're doing there. Now the fire isn't exactly there, so I think it is supposed to be slightly different. But like, dude,
Yeah,
I was like, oh, they're like playing with some things here. I don't know. Narratively, I liked like what it was doing. There's lots of silly stuff which we obviously talked about, but
yeah,
like there are some cool like moments here, and the again like the way that they're playing with it is so wild. Um, and I know, so that's the last page for you, right?
yeah.
Okay. So for me, in the physical comic book, there's another 3 pages of ads, right? So yeah. So but the page next to it is really interesting. So, it ends. It says like the end. But on the page next, it says history in the making. And then it's an ad for West Coast Avengers and the Vision and
Oh,
Scarlet Witch, right? Which
uh,
is all about like Vision and Wonder Man, kind of like a narrative that happens around this time
okay.
in Avengers. And so I'm like, this is kind of like weird. Like it's a good ad to put next where they're like, oh, it's this history here, but also history in the making. Like it's almost suggestive of like Circuit Breaker will return, you know?
All right.
And I was like, okay. I'm like, all
I
right.
wonder
And
if
I
she
think,
did. She could have appeared anywhere.
yeah, I know, because they own her. They made
Yeah, they
that
made damn sure.
clever. Yeah, they made damn sure they did. But just absolutely wild. And I actually I appreciated kind of seeing it, and I was sad that like an Autobot doesn't die. I mean, not sad. I mean, I like the Autobots, right? They're the good guys. But like
Yeah.
it would have been so hard. Like it would have gone so hard in the paint to be like, I killed Wheeljack. Done. Wheeljack's dead.
Yeah, it would have been a cooler power move for her to show up and then destroy one of the major characters. That would have been a
Right?
really cool power play for her. But unfortunately, they've all just been destroyed and repaired already. So I
Oh,
think
really?
they didn't want to be like destroying another one so quickly.
Okay. Contextually, that makes a lot of sense. All right. I think it's really interesting all the things that you've shared about the series up until this point, which is like it seems like the creators or like the people drawing and writing this are really kind of going hard on it. And
Yeah,
I wonder if because this is Marvel but not one of Marvel's characters, instead this is like a deal that they have with Hasbro that like that that Marvel editorial was just like, do whatever you want, guys. And so that freedom allowed them to kind of be like, okay, we're gonna hang up some Autobots like on meat hooks. We're gonna have, we're gonna bring in Circuit Breaker, which like, yes, not our character, but like we're gonna bring her in, right? And she's gonna look really sexy, but then also be kind of violent and intense. Um, I wonder if that's part of it. Like if they just were given more, I don't know, more leeway, more less oversight maybe, and we're able to get away with some things that maybe like a Spider-Man comic wouldn't.
yeah, I think so. Early on, it was so loose because things were like based on the toys, and the toys were not based on the cartoon, and then the comic was kind of a mixture of based on both of those things. And then
Yeah.
the guy who's writing this issue, he wrote the like tech spec cards, which is the place where everything about their personalities and about the characters came from. So he kind of
Okay.
created it all separately from the cartoon. So yeah, it feels like because it wasn't firm, nothing was really set. The cartoon went off and did its own thing, and then the comic did its own thing. And yeah, like you said, the comic is so much different and kind of more serious, and they're trying so much harder than they needed to, and then than I expected them to as well. They're really
Yeah.
trying to make it interesting and like have these like plot threads that go on and on for issues and issues. Like yeah, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff where I thought it would be very episodic and like at the end of every issue everything will be fine again like the cartoon, but it's not like that at all.
Mm. That's really
Yeah, like you
interesting.
said, I wonder if they just kind of went, yeah, go, it's based on toys, it's nobody cares. And then it became this thing where it's like, no, it's really popular and in some ways really serious.
Yeah, and I think like there's a freedom at this time maybe of like, okay, we're doing a like, not an A-list Marvel character, and so therefore we can kind of play with stuff a little bit more. There's there's a series on Luke Cage. Are you familiar with that character from
Yeah,
Marvel? Yeah. So
yeah.
there's a character, there's a series called Cage, which is from the 90s. And the
Mhm.
writer of that series only wrote that that series. He
Oh,
didn't write
wow.
any other comics. And it kind of goes hard about like racial issues and things like around identity in ways that I'm like, other comics in Marvel or in DC weren't doing this at that time. And there's another one with Deathlock. Do you know that character?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
kind of cyborg kind of looking guy.
Yes, yeah, he's a cyborg looking guy. So he had a series as well, the Cage series I think is good, and I always suggest people like read it if they can ever get their hands on it or it's free somewhere. But
Mhm.
the Deathlock series, there's a 4-issue mini series where they introduce the character, and then he gets an ongoing series that runs for like 20 some, 30 some issues. And it's more good than bad, and it's a lot of I'm human and also not. And people keep seeing me as like something different than I am. No one will see me for who I am. And this idea about like navigating a world that isn't built for you. So it's a lot about
Mhm.
disability. It's a lot about like he's a black character who has had his body like really disformed. And there's like a lot
Oh,
of
I
like,
didn't know he was black. I mean, he's
yes,
so much that he's not, his
yes,
skin is not black anymore. That's really interesting.
yes, and but then they talk about stuff like that, not as directly as like maybe they would today, but not as indirectly as you think they would. But these characters at the time were like B-list Marvel characters. So like they
Right.
get these series, right? They get these series where like I imagine they're just kind of allowed to do or explore what they want, and as long as people are buying the issues, they don't get canceled, right?
Mhm.
And I think like it's an interesting time in comics where you can find some of these gems throughout, and this issue felt a little bit like that. That like it seems like your project here of going through these Transformers comics is actually a really good one in that you're looking at a medium, like the comics medium of this franchise that is mainly toys and film. It's toy
Yeah.
movies and TV, right? But there's a comic book about it, and it feels like like the youngest child that's kind of ignored. You know, you have three
Yeah.
kids, you kind of don't pay attention to your third one. They'll survive, right? It's fine, right? And, or whatever, right? And it's kind of nice. Yeah, that's cool.
Ah, thanks. Yeah, I feel like I don't think anyone else has done this, has like gone through the whole series and really looked at it really closely. And I
Yeah.
think I don't know. I mean, the reason I got into these and was able to get hold of them was from the Kickstarter that made like $4 million. Like it made a lot of money. People want these
Oh wow.
comics, but I don't know how many people have read them all. And yeah, at least as far as I can tell, there's no one that's discussed them as much as I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're so great, and it's a real shame because, yeah, like you said, the TV series and the animation and the movies are where everybody really goes to, and the figures
Hmm.
too. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it until I started doing this a little bit more. But they release new Transformers. I don't know if I should say figures or toys, but like every month, pretty much there's some, and the collectors are diehard. They really go into it and get into like the fine details of everything about them. And I'm like,
Oh,
this is so comic here. Like, guys, I mean, that's cool. You can play with your toys or collect your figures or whatever, but this is other thing that's like so amazing. It's kind
yes.
of funny.
Yeah.
It's been here this whole time in the background. And then the new
Yeah.
comic that's coming out is just incredible. Like, I would recommend that to anyone who's never even seen Transformers before, or even if you're if you're a huge fan and know everything, or if you're a new person, it's like it's so good that it stands on its own. You can just read it. Everyone should read it. It's so good.
So I think I'm actually gonna probably at some point pick up some of the newer stuff for the Transformers that's going on. Based on your
So
suggestion,
good.
actually, like you've kind of sold me on it a little bit here.
Ah,
So
I'm
good
glad.
job.
Ah, thanks.
Hasbro should be sponsoring you if they're not already.
No,
So,
they're not. I would love to be. Oh my gosh. I couldn't imagine.
uh, but yeah, that sounds really like that sounds cool. That's like a good selling point on it. But I think like all the things we talked about with this issue and the ways that you were connecting it to previous issues, it really seems like they're trying some things and but not immune to the market, like not immune to the
Yeah.
1980s. Oh my God, here's a sexy lady, or not immune to the 1980s. Here's a CEO, but he's actually really a good guy. He's all right. Yeah, that's wild. I have heard that. Tell me if you're since you know Transformers more than I do. I
Okay.
have heard that Transformers doesn't maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it, but that Transformers suffers from a like power creep where like it's Optimus Prime and Megatron and they're supposed to be the most powerful Autobots and
Ah,
Decepticons, and then new Autobots and Decepticons keep getting introduced who are just like gods, and then
yeah.
like you said, Shockwave just comes in and destroys everybody, and
Yeah.
then they have to introduce somebody to like destroy Shockwave, so then they become a god, and it just becomes like new god
Well,
levels. Yeah.
so in the show, like they start to because it's all based on the toys, right? So they
Yeah.
what's happening in the show is just a reflection of like the new toy they came out with, or they figured
Yeah.
out they could do. And these are very complicated toys where, they had to be able to be a car and a robot. And then some like genius was like, okay, I made it I think the first one they come up with is Devastator, which is 6 construction vehicles that can also become robots. And
Okay.
then you can also combine them together into one giant robot. So I can't imagine the planning and the topographical brain you have to figure out that you can do that. That's
Oh my
that's
God.
incredible. That's so
Yeah.
impressive to me. So yeah, they made that. So it's like six. You have to buy these 6 separate figures, then you can combine them into this one giant figure. So you get like these giant robots, and then the way
Yeah.
that they deal with the fact that they have like these really insane, devastating weapons is like just don't put every character in every episode, pretty much.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so I wonder how that's going to go in the comic, because in the show, yeah, they just don't have this character in this episode or whatever, or like the story line for that episode is like really bonkers. Like some of the characters go back in time, so not everybody's there or whatever. In the comic, Shockwave is so unbelievably powerful and has like taken over leadership of the Decepticons, and now he's doing all these really clever moves. He's like, I've taken over this manufacturing plant and I've got the matrix of creation so I can build my own army. And then the first thing he decides to build are the Constructicons, like it says here at the bottom of the last page. So a little bit of a spoiler, but I mean, we knew it was coming. So the first thing that he makes is things that can build more stuff. So he's making these like really smart moves. Also, he took over this oil rig, so he's got a constant energy source. Like, he's really doing it like the smartest way you could do it. So I'm like, I don't know how he's going to get overthrown because no one is as strong as him, and he's making all these really intelligent moves. And the other things he did too, he like appealed to the Decepticons and made them want him to be the leader. So he's doing like I said, as goofy as these comics are, some of the stuff is so good and so well done and so well thought out. So I genuinely don't know how he's going to be beaten unless it's Josie.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I feel like she's the third kind of faction where they're like, yeah, Autobots versus Decepticons. Then they had to put someone else in there to make it more complicated and more interesting. But even she doesn't seem like she's strong enough to beat Shockwave. I don't know what's going to happen. I've no idea.
That is so fascinating. And honestly, so one of the things that I love about Beast Wars, which I know you're into it, you haven't gotten into it, like fully into it, but none of this is a surprise because I know that the similar things happen in the main TV show and in the movies, right? So one of the things is that the Decepticons are more numerous and like it seems like almost stronger than the Autobots, right? Always, right? But the Decepticons are just always betraying each other. So they're like, Starscream. Starscream's like the famous example. He's like, Megatron, whatever, like screaming and like betraying everybody. And so one of the things that I like, or that I think is an interesting philosophical or maybe interesting theory that some Transformers media comes to is that evil is more numerous and is more powerful, it seems, but evil turns on itself constantly. And the way that good wins is that good like holds the line and continues to be good no matter what and doesn't give in, and it like that is more powerful because it's like this consistency, this like work towards providing a better world, a better space, a better whatever.
I think you're totally right, and I think that's what, or at least one of the things that makes people still come back to Transformers as grown adults. Like, this is written in the 80s, so there's people who are 40 years old or older who are still into Transformers now, and I think it's because of that kind of stuff. It's way in the background, and it may not have ever even been intentional, but there's like real philosophical things within it. Like, even if you just talk about the animated movie where, like in that movie, Megatron gets really powerful. He gets changed into Galvatron, but he kind of has to like sell his soul to do that. And it's so interesting where like the two main characters, the antagonist and the protagonist sacrifices himself pretty much and dies, and like gets to pass on. He's still powerful within the movie because he passes on the matrix of leadership and also all these like positive messages to his teammates who continue to fight. So he kind of like makes his sacrifice, but he still becomes really powerful because he's just like kind of martyr for them. Then the bad guy also continues to inspire his like side, but by completely selling out and being like, getting rid of all morals just for power, and it doesn't work out for him. Like that's none of that is explicitly stated to you, but I think adults just pick that out even subconsciously. That's like one of the things about Transformers I'm so curious about, and I want to go to a con or something and speak to people and be like, why do you still like this? Why do you still come back to this when it's on the surface very silly? It's really goofy on the surface, but there's something in it. There's something deep inside it that really draws people back to it.
I think that like if you ever want to do like a special episode where we talk about Beast Wars, right? Like let me know because I would love to sit with you and be like, okay, like let's just talk about the whole series like for like an hour and like talk about like how it goes, because the end of that cartoon, like that cartoon is silly as hell, right? It is the silliest.
Gorilla.
Oh, I know. Like it gets sillier, my friend. It gets sillier. There is a point where, and I'm ruining nothing for you. I'm just gonna put this little kernel of like nugget of joy in your mind right now, which is that at some point some of the Autobots and what was it? No, they're not Autobots. They're
No, they're like
Maximals and
Maximals
Predacons.
and
Yes,
yeah.
and Predacons, right? So some of the Maximals and the Predacons become what they call transmetals. I'm not
Oh,
going
I've
to tell
heard
you
that
what it
word
is.
before.
Yes, I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's the silliest shit in the
Okay.
world. It's amazing. And the whole show is silly. And then at the end of the series, they go so hard in this idea of like, uh, you know, what is the true nature of one's soul? What is like, or the spark, right? Like, because in Autobots they have like the spark, right? Like
Yeah.
that's their soul, right? There's like a literal thing, right? But like
Mhm.
in Beast Wars, like the spark becomes like a big part. All this idea of betrayal, like when you continue to betray, when you continue to hurt others, what like there's a breaking point for everybody, right? And so the evil side does all these things that you're like, oh my gosh, they're digging themselves a hole. If they just didn't keep down this road, they would win. But like all these characters keep making choices, and some characters who are quote unquote bad make choices that you're like, oh yeah, this is their breaking point, right? And it's amazing. It's such a cool end. I now think
Whoa,
I have the
okay.
DVDs. I have the DVDs. I think I'm gonna go fucking rewatch this with my kid. Make them rewatch it with me. But
I was about to say, you were saying he's 12 and getting into new things. I was wondering how that was going to
yeah.
land because that CG is rough.
That CG is super rough, but I think it's rough in a fun way. I'm not gonna lie, right? Like I think it's rough in
Yeah,
a fun.
definitely of its time. And
Yes.
when I was in my like very early 20s, I rewatched all of Reboot, and yeah, it looks like trash. It looks really bad, but it's so
Yeah.
good. It's really well
Yeah.
written, so I'm totally giving this show a chance because if
Yeah.
you can get by the CG, sometimes things are really, really good.
Yeah.
Green Lantern too. There was a Green Lantern TV series that looks so terrible, but it was so good.
Oh, cool. I didn't know. Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you giving me the time and like waking up so early to chat with me,
Ah,
even though our
no.
times were and letting me read this and chat with you about this. Thank you so
Oh, you're
much. And
so welcome. Thank you too for making the time. It was so much fun. Yeah, like you said, you're so easy to talk to. This was really fun.
oh, thank you so much. You were very easy to talk to too. Yeah,
Ah,
let me
sure.
know. Yeah. I really appreciate this. Is there something that you do at the end that you want me to kind of like
Oh,
and
not
yeah.
not usually, but you have. I just read on your Blue Sky, you're like trying to get a book done, and you've done some
Yeah.
poetry and stuff. So do you have work people can come and find?
Yeah, like so if you want to stay in contact with me or any of your
Of
listeners
course.
want to, I'm on Blue Sky. I'm at MVC Poet dot blue sky dot or BSKY dot social. And yeah, on there I always release like when new poems or new work of mine comes out. I am working right now on a poetry manuscript, right? Well, that is a separate conversation for another time. But I do have a monthly blog that I run called Widely Read. Or it's like, oh, it's not, I guess a blog is the right word. I'm not sure, but it's my own website. And every month I publish a new essay on reading, writing, or books. So most recently in February, I released an essay that was the 9 things I learned about love from Ovid's The Art of Love,
Oh,
which I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't read it yet, which I don't know why you would read Ovid's poems, The Art of Love. But one of the things he says is that if you're married, you should let your wife go have affairs because the people that she has affairs with could become your best friends. And that's a big bonus of letting your wife have affairs.
oh,
Yep.
that just sounds like personal experience. That.
Oh, the poem is serious and not, right? The Ovid was around during like the height of the Roman Empire and in Rome specifically, where there was like a lot of wealth and not a lot of like risk that they were doing anything wrong. It was a little bit decadent. And so him as a young man writing these poems is a lot about him trying to sleep with people's wives. And so he's pitching to them, hey, we could be friends if you just let me sleep with your wife. which is wild.
All right.
Yeah, so he's
Yeah,
he's partially joking, he's partially not. It's very interesting. But I read the book so that you don't have to. I read the poem so you don't have to. And wrote 9 takeaways on that
All right.
blog. Yeah, which is called Widely Read.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, man, for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. It was really fun. Thank you so much.
So it seems like Johnny's theory that Shockwave's 6 new life forms are going to become the Constructicons was right. And I suspect that might be why Justin remembers issues 10, 11, and 12 so fondly. But we'll have to find out next issue. So I hope you'll join us for that. I am always looking for other guests though. It's really nice to have new people on the show. So if taking part is something that you would like to do, you can contact me either in the comments of the YouTube videos, or you can join our Discord using this QR code, or you can send me a message on Blue Sky. I'm sure I'll receive that too. Or if you prefer, you can email me. That's transformersautobookclub@gmail.com. And I have to mention again, there is a Patreon now at patreon.com/transformersautobookclub. It's a $3 a month minimum, but you can decide to sponsor the show for however much money you want to, and all of it will be put back into the show, either by buying me time to write notes and edit, or if it goes super well, by being able to buy the Transformers manga. I'd love to be able to read that as a Patreon bonus. And if things go extremely well, I would like to hire somebody to do some of the image editing chores, which takes up a bunch of my time. As always, you can support the show for free by giving me a review on your podcast platform of choice, or by leaving a comment, giving the video a like, and sharing it around to your friends. That's all for this week, but I hope you'll join me and Justin again next week for the start of his 3-issue residency. Until then though, take care, be kind, and do good. Till all are one.